brings only people who are volunteering to be there, which is a very interesting format. And we're actually very delighted and very grateful in this edition that the online technology allows us to actually have such a broad participation. It is meant probably to remain that way because of the advantage of the broader exposure, which on a topic like knowledge and learning, we have to have. So GEF highly values knowledge and learning as a way to enhance the impact of its investment and to facilitate and enhance the sustainability, as well as to fuel policy dialogue, which is one of the most valuable and hard to foster type of impact. And so in GEF 7, we've been very actively mainstreaming knowledge management and learning into projects and programs. We have now good evidence that this approach is working, and we will share part of that today. But of course, we're more ambitious for the future with you. And what GEF-SEC and the agencies are undertaking in terms of numerous knowledge exchange and capacity building initiative, jointly and individually at both the country and the corporate level, we want all of this to be part of the common assets and the common reflection. So in GEF 8, we are committed to taking the ambition further. And that's really the main point here. We need to build on the lessons learned until now and to further enhance knowledge management and learning during GEF 8 and beyond. And it is necessary in this context to raise the bar of ambition for all of us. Knowledge is a key leverage factor for increased impact for the GEF. And together with financial resources, capacity increase, and policy change, these are the four main vectors of leverage. And of course, we have a big problem and expanded resources in GEF 8, but nevertheless limited resources. And so leverage is crucial to this. Frankly, the GEF partnership at large sits on a gold mine of knowledge. We know that, right? And gold as it comes is probably the wrong analogy here, because we do not lose anything when we share the gold of knowledge, rather we actually get more in return, right? That's the logic of it. And so the question becomes, how do we tap into this gold mine of the GEF expanded partnership knowledge for the benefit of our country efforts? Now, as you know, in GEF 8, we are also seeking to engage and support countries more strategically. We're also seeking to expand the impact into policy change and to contribute to enhancing policy coherence in countries. We're also seeking to take successful integration that we have in GEF 6 and in GEF 7 taken forward further into our projects and programs. And so to guide us in doing this, a new GEF knowledge management and learning strategy is being developed. It was IEO's recommendation. We've had exchanges with staff on this long-standing, and we're delighted at the opportunity. And so you are to expect here a partnership-wide consultative process, which has started to identify knowledge management and learning key priorities for GEF 8 and beyond. Today, you are going to hear about the progress that we have made to date towards developing the strategy. We have also shared a progress report as an information document, which is accessible for more details. And as part of the strategy development, we have conducted already quite a lot of analysis, which we will share in Yasmin's presentation. There are findings there of interest. You will also hear insight from staff and from IEO, as well as from GEF-funded knowledge platforms that stem from the IAPs and the IPs. And finally, you will learn about our initiatives to facilitate knowledge exchange at the country level, which have been enhanced in recent months. Now, in the next few months, what to expect? We will seek your input and your contribution. We will lead a collective effort to calibrate our partnership choices around all the knowledge and learning experience that we already have in place. Together with you, we will seek to redefine, better connect, and appropriately calibrate the definition of objectives that we will give to the strategy, right? The role of existing knowledge initiatives in being the foundation to that strategy, the direction of proposed actions, and the effort, the level of effort and the resource implications defined by the strategy. Because as in anything, even though we have high ambitions, we need to calibrate our effort to and to dimension our effort to what is most appropriate for our partnership. So we will engage you in much further consultations, and today is a chance actually to take stock, not just of the efforts to date, but also of the inputs, opinions, and findings of many partners in this effort. And let me not delay us any further. We are looking forward very much to the agenda to get this information going. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your attention and your participation. We look forward to your comments and questions.
Thank you so much, Françoise. We appreciate your opening and all your support for this good work at the GEF. So without further ado, I'm just going to provide a summary of where we are. I would like to bring us all to the same page in terms of our efforts to date. So if Ted could please put up my presentation. I would like to give you a sense of where we are in terms of the strategy development process, also summarize a few of the findings that we have. And after I present, I'm going to invite one of our consultants to give us an understanding of the latest results of the knowledge management audit that we've been undertaking. So here is an update. Next slide, please. I just want to remind you all that the GEF's knowledge management and learning objectives are twofold. One is we seek to improve quality and impact of GEF funding, through its programs and projects. And we also would like to, through knowledge and learning, inform global, regional, and national policy dialogues to reverse global environmental degradation and safeguard the environment, the global environment, which is our main mission. Next, please. You may be familiar with this trajectory of efforts on knowledge and learning. And this has started all the way back in 2010 with the key milestone being the knowledge management approach paper, which has shaped our efforts in GEF 7 and has brought us to today. And right now we are working on the knowledge management and learning strategy development process. But all of this, these efforts throughout the years have contributed to where we are today. And I'm going to, of course, we will circulate this presentation later, but you can then investigate, what are the different steps that we have undertaken to bring us here. I will summarize some of the key ones later. Next step, please. Next slide. This process that we have been implementing since the knowledge management approach paper was welcomed by our council really focuses on facilitating systematic processes at both project and corporate levels. And our goal is to generate, capture, transfer, and use critical knowledge across the partnership and beyond. And we also aim to inform and enhance project design, portfolio management, policy development, resource mobilization, and outreach throughout GEF operations, and to build capacity at the country level, but also at the partnership level, and foster collaboration, innovation, and scale up through demonstration and learning. We believe all of these activities will contribute to enhancing the impact of the GEF through knowledge and learning. Next, please. Now, how do we do this? The knowledge management approach that the council welcomed basically directed us to work in two areas. One is mainstreaming knowledge management and learning in GEF project and program design and implementation. And this is being achieved through integrating certain knowledge and learning requirements into the GEF project and program cycle. And our teams at the GEF Secretariat, when they review project and program proposals that come in for financing, they focus on these requirements and make sure that all the projects integrate knowledge and learning objectives and deliverables into their project design. The second way of implementing the knowledge management approach is at the corporate level through the different initiatives, products, and tools that we have been implementing to capture, store, share, and disseminate knowledge. And we do this in collaboration with key GEF stakeholders, such as agencies, countries, scientific and technical advisory panel of the GEF, independent evaluation office, and of course, CSOs and the private sector. This is definitely a partnership-wide, higher level effort of knowledge exchange. Next, please. Now, in terms of the first pathway of integrating knowledge and learning into the GEF investments, I mentioned specific requirements. Here you will see at the different stages of the project cycle, how we try to integrate knowledge management into our projects. You can look at this later, but just very quickly at the design stage, as you know, we have two points at which we have a chance to review project proposals. One is at the very concept level, PIF level, and the other one is at the CO endorsement level right before implementation. And at these stages, we have specific requirements that the projects have to comply with before they can go on for approval for GEF financing. And then during implementation stages, these are the stages that we are currently working on. We are requesting projects and programs to report on knowledge and learning, the different kinds of deliverables they're implementing as they progress on project implementation, and especially reporting on lessons learned. The midterm review, the MTR stage, is the most critical because that's where adaptive management can happen, and that's where knowledge that's being generated from the projects can help the project itself, as well as other projects that are similar out there. And then, of course, at terminal evaluation stage, when the project is completed, the evaluation of the results and impacts and lessons learned from the project will help new project design. And that's where our evaluation office, independent evaluation office of the GEF come into play with the terminal evaluation reviews, where knowledge is then turning into recommendations for improvements in project design and implementation in the future. Next, please. Here is a list of the specific requirements currently we have for our projects and programs at the concept level and also at the CO endorsement stages. And as you can see, there is an emphasis on lessons learned and best practice at the design stage. We want to see our projects learning from previous experiences that the GEF has had or other institutions have had in financing projects in the similar vein. We also want our projects to learn from relevant projects that are ongoing and initiatives, and also evaluations that have happened that might inform project design. And throughout project implementation, we want the projects to use tools and methods for knowledge exchange, learning, and collaboration at both program and project levels. And we want projects to utilize knowledge platforms and websites to the extent feasible. All of the knowledge outputs should be produced and shared with key stakeholders. And each project or program should have a plan for strategic communications, etc. And these activities are actually financed by the GEF. So there is a budget line in all of our projects to help project stakeholders undertake these knowledge and learning activities. And this is actually very important because many institutions may have similar asks from their projects, but they may not have adequate financing for it, which is a major bottleneck. And we try to remove that bottleneck by making sure our projects have adequate financing to be able to take knowledge and learning and therefore actually deliver results, knowledge results at the end. Thank you. Next slide, please. And this is just a very quick slide on a recent result that we have seen from one of our investments. And it's just an example of a knowledge platform that a program is actually has just recently launched. But we have many similar such outcomes that are available out there that you should make yourself I guess just if you're interested to go and look at some of our platforms. And in fact, today we are going to discuss a few of them so that you can have an idea of what we are financing. Next, please. Next slide. Oh, there we go. Thank you. The second pathway of mainstreaming knowledge and learning into our investments is through the corporate level initiatives. And at the GEF Secretariat, we have a number of categories of work that entail knowledge and learning. For example, in terms of capture and storage, we have our GEF portal, which collects and compiles all of the GEF project related documentation. It's really mainly used for processing projects, but it's also currently collecting lessons learned, which can then be actually synthesized and shared across the partnership. We also have the GEF Kaleo, which is the Ask the Expert tool, which is available 24/7 online for you to ask any question about the GEF and get a quick answer, an up-to-date answer to your questions. We have a number of instruments for dissemination. Of course, our GEF website, which is the main place where you can find all GEF-related information. We have our GEF publications and videos, good practice briefs. We have social media tools, and we also, of course, have face-to-face events at conventions and other international events and GEF booths, etc. We also, as Francois said, highly value knowledge exchange at the country level. And for that, we have set up a number of initiatives. We have GEF Knowledge Days, we have regional workshops, country dialogues, forums. We are currently setting up a pilot knowledge and collaboration platform for focal points, which we will discuss later today. We have, of course, multiple presentations at various relevant events, and we have retreats and partnership activities. So all of these at the corporate level aim to facilitate dialogue and exchange across the partnership. In terms of reporting, of course, we report regularly GEF results to the partnership and beyond through our scorecard, annual monitoring report, and of course, reports to conventions. And finally, we do a lot of training and capacity building activities. GEF Academy being the online training resource with a couple of e-courses with more to come. We have Art of Knowledge Exchange guidebook and workshops, and we also have targeted workshops for different constituencies like the introduction seminar, etc. Next, please. Now, all of these activities have been happening, and in the meantime, of course, we have been evaluated for the performance of our activities, and we have been getting really very helpful feedback from these evaluations. The latest one was conducted by the Independent Evaluation Office in 2020, and that one has acknowledged that we have made progress in knowledge management in the GEF. However, we would benefit from a clear knowledge management strategy, and that the GEF should invest in a technical solution that strengthens the KM system at the higher corporate level to enable better knowledge exchange among the partners. So the GEF Secretariat agreed with that through its management response, and the Council gave us a mandate to develop a clear KM strategy and a technical solution to strengthen our KM systems. And we held a consultation with our agencies, who are the key partners in terms of course, project development and implementation and learning from the project. So they gave us some really good recommendations as to what our priorities should be in developing the strategy. They focused a lot on extracting and sharing knowledge and lessons learned from the investments, increasing knowledge flow among GEF investments and partners, and better application and use of existing knowledge to improve GEF investments. So these are our really key priorities in shaping the knowledge and learning, knowledge management and learning strategy. And as you know, if you had been with us before, in December, we launched the strategy development process in December 2021, and starting off with a KM audit. Next, please. Now, this strategy development process was designed around very important principles that we hold dear to ourselves, which the main part is that it's based on broad engagement across the partnership. We are trying to implement the process through a highly consultative format. We want it to be evidence-based, we want it to be practical and utility-oriented, and we also want to be responsive to GEF stakeholder needs. We are trying to make sure that any activities that the strategy focuses on will be cost-effective and informed by industry best practice. And we also, of course, want to align the knowledge management and learning strategy with GEF 8 replenishment goals. So we designed a stepwise process to achieve this that includes basically and touches all the different stakeholders of the GEF. So the initial stage was the KM audit and stock taking and assessment of GEF knowledge assets. That part is pretty much completed. There are a few things that are happening, but we are kind of in that process, completing that process. Assessment of agency policies, practices, and platforms, that's also currently underway, almost completed. After that, we are going to lead a collaborative strategy development and action plan. This is going to be taken to the council in December 2022 for discussion and adoption, hopefully. And then, of course, that would be followed by resource allocation and partnership-wide implementation. Next, please. Now, here's the sequence of events that are taking place right now. And we are in the middle of it. As you can see at the June council meeting, our knowledge management audit has been completed. And next step will be in the fall with the visioning workshop that Francoise mentioned, with focus group interviews and discussions and a KM indicator development segment. And all of that is going to feed into the KM strategy development, which would be ready for December. Next, please. Now, I want to quickly show you some results from the KM audit. I am not going to go into details in this presentation, but you will receive this presentation, so you will have all the bullets of the key preliminary findings that will inform the strategy. So we had a KM survey, and some of you may have joined. All the partnership was invited, and the survey was circulated across to more than 2,000 people. And next, please. As a result, we have some preliminary findings regarding, where we are currently in terms of knowledge and learning. What tools and products were the most popular, most used, which were not so popular, not very accessible, why. We asked these questions to the partnership. We've gotten really good feedback. We also asked questions about KM maturity. Where are we in terms of, the institutions, in terms of implementing knowledge management at their own institutions, and also implementing knowledge management in GEF projects. And all of in this actually area, we saw that midterm reviews have emerged as a very critical tool for learning. So that has given us actually an incentive to look closer to this tool, see if we can improve our collection of knowledge from the MTRs. And we've identified a couple of areas of improvement in terms of best practices and lessons learned, and governance and resources for KM at the secretariat level, at the corporate level, and possibility of creating incentives to codify and share across the GEF partnership. Next, please. Also, the survey findings focused on knowledge access and flows, and it became very clear that the GEF website is the main source of information for our partnership, and that's where we can focus, to use it as a gateway to other sources of information. OFP websites and IP platforms were also rated helpful, but they are not being utilized as they should be, or as people hope that they would be. So that would be an area of improvement, for example. Let's go to the next slide, please. So we have a number of preliminary recommendations from the survey, and you can see them here listed. And we need to enhance quality and improve flow and accessibility of existing GEF KMNL tools and products. We need to raise awareness of these tools and products that we already have. We need to be more realistic about expectations for the partnership, because the partnership is very diverse with different stakeholders at different capacity levels. So we cannot expect everyone to perform in the same way. We need to invest more corporate resources into knowledge and learning, especially at the GEF Secretariat, to be able to facilitate all of this exchange better. We need to prepare clear guidance around knowledge management and learning products, tools, and requirements, especially for project level knowledge sharing and learning. We need to create incentives, and we need to build a shared understanding and capacity around good knowledge and learning outcomes. Next, please. Now, we also conducted a project knowledge management inventory to see what happened in GEF 7. As Francoise mentioned, in GEF 7, we really worked very hard to integrate and mainstream knowledge and learning into our projects. And we wanted to see if this is actually bearing fruit. So we looked at 56 full-size CEO-endorsed GEF 7 projects. And these were representative from 65 countries, 13 agencies, and all focal areas, both programs and projects. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but there were some very interesting findings about how much effort was being done, genuinely being done in terms of integrating knowledge management. However, there was definitely a lack of a systematic approach. So the agencies and the different stakeholders were basically doing in a different way, and therefore the need for a template, the need for guidance became very clear. So next, please. Now, there are a few preliminary recommendations emerging from the inventory. And these are actually quite helpful. We need to provide knowledge management guidance and support the agencies because they are the ones who are really shaping the project design. We need to build capacity in projects and programs to design and manage KM deliverables. Currently, as I mentioned, we do finance knowledge management deliverables. However, we don't have specific requirements. This inventory is suggesting that we could ask agencies to actually designate a lead on knowledge and learning from the start for each project. This study also suggested that capacity building is very important, and agencies could work with other stakeholders to make sure that there is adequate capacity to integrate knowledge and learning into project design and implementation. Basically for future work, better guidelines, indicators, and better capacity. Those seem to be the key recommendations coming from this inventory, which we will take into consideration in the strategy development process. Next, please. Now, all of this has been summarized in the council paper, the information paper that we have presented to, posted for council consideration next week. So you are most welcome to all look at it. I believe our agenda and logistics note has a link to this paper. And here is the number for it. So please take a look. It will have the summary. It will also have all of the different next steps that we are planning in the next couple of months. And please let us know what you think, either today in the chat, or you can send us emails. We would love to hear from you. Next, I'd like to invite Professor Kimis Dalker, who is one of the consultants who have worked with us on this knowledge management audit that we've been conducting. And she's the director and associate professor at the School of Information Studies at McGill University in Montreal, Canada. She's the author of several books on knowledge management. And she is going to present the results of the IT analysis we have conducted to see how agencies are implementing knowledge platforms and knowledge systems within themselves, and how these could potentially be connected as part of a technical solution for the GEF. The interviews that have resulted in this presentation actually were conducted by Ritu Kumar of Bridge Consulting, who is not available today to be with us, but all of the agencies will recognize her because she spoke to all of the 18 agencies of the GEF, as well as the 5 conventions that the GEF serves. So Ted, if you could put up Professor Kimis's presentation, we can invite her to speak right now. Hi, Kimis, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us today. And as soon as Ted can load up your presentation, we will start. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Kim. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble opening this right now. Just give me a second.
Okay,
Okay.
Here.
no problems.
That's okay. That's what we expect for a presentation on technology. So
And Yasmin, we have, while we're waiting, we have a question about sharing presentations. Yes, we will share all the presentations after the meeting.
Yes, we will. We will send it to everyone that was in, whoever was invited to the meeting will receive the presentations.
Okay, we're okay.
Okay.
Let me just share this.
okay. Okay, I will, in a similar vein, just provide you highlights because everyone will have a copy of this. Next slide, please. As Yasmin explained, this is one more Lego piece in many. So this was a focus on specifically the technology platform, and it's part of the overall KM audit. Next slide, please. The purpose of this specific piece was really to analyze existing platforms to see if and how they could be leveraged. And the idea is, how do we go forward? Should GEF look at an entirely new knowledge exchange hub or platform? Is there something that can be gleaned from what already exists? And of course, these two are not mutually exclusive. Next slide, please. So the knowledge audit, very quickly, as Yasmin explained, my colleague Rita, I believe, spoke with many, if not all the agencies. There's just one pending in all the conventions. Next slide, please. So the purpose of the presentation is, again, I won't go through every single point, but just to give you an idea of what we found in a preliminary way. The key findings, themes that sort of bubbled up from all of the interviews, of course, not a surprise. There is a very, very diverse range of user needs. Also, the content was quite fragmented. So this came out, the silos, the need for KM components to talk to each other. And there were also some comments interesting on what people would like to see. So what is the desired content? And one, of course, is lessons learned. Also information on other institutions, who's working on what's coming up in the pipeline, and things like that. Next slide, please. Also, comments are sort of circulating around how this content is presented and how people, when they access it, what do they see? So here, the desire was really for going beyond text, document, table-based. Nothing wrong with that, but in addition, would be great to have more multimedia, more interactive way of, accessing and using the information. And then I very much enjoyed the opening comments. Francoise used the metaphor of mining for gold. So the best part of doing a KM audit is finding a lot of that gold, right? Because there's always a nice surprise of how much excellent things are going on and that not everybody may know about. So there were many examples, and this is by no means exhaustive. So don't feel excluded if you don't see your agency or convention on there. There are many, many more. But in doing the audit, we found, wow, there's some really interesting ways of sharing knowledge already. So some institutions are using social media in very innovative ways. Some have reached consensus on ontologies and gone beyond and thesauri. So there's a lot of good examples that bubble up during a knowledge audit. Next slide, please. And then, of course, the list of what would be nice to have. Again, as was mentioned, using existing platforms, websites, portals. Of course, you are in a multilingual environment. So, but there was also some interesting comments around the need for real-time collaboration and support for the communities of practice. Repositories, of course, for lessons learned. Very much repeated was this notion that however GEF decides to go forward, it would be very, very important to not have to re-enter the same content in multiple places. So this duplication of effort is really was mentioned many, many times. And of course, interoperability. Next slide, please. And then there was also an equally long list of potential obstacles, which again, I don't think any of these would be a surprise to the audience. But again, we just sort of made a list. Security restrictions came up, copyright issues in sharing some of the content, the linguistic barriers, also something around the syncing of timelines, like when things are due, when things are submitted, and taking a look at that. And ever present, the cost and funding issues. Next slide, please. So from this, we distilled a few preliminary recommendations. One, again, as was mentioned in some of the other inventories and audit findings, there are differing levels of maturity. So some are at early stages and don't have that many projects. Others are much more advanced and have many more projects. So, and then again, we found the same thing as was already mentioned, that the website is heavily used, the portal is not. Again, this is not necessarily a judgment, it's just a fact. And some replied that they were not familiar with the portal and what the portal had to offer. Next slide, please. This came up, which surprised me a little bit, but again, it happens quite a lot. This need to make sure we're all talking about the same thing, right? Because it's a common phenomenon that we may be using the same words, but maybe we have a different understanding of what those words mean. And so it's one of the key recommendations that came out was really to have a GEF sort of agreed upon definition of what is a lesson learned. And here are some quotes on it, because we need very much to define the scope. So when we speak of, how would we like to proceed with a GEF partnership-wide knowledge hub or platform, a lot of people, said that's great, but what would go in there? Like, what are we sharing, and how would that look? And there on the screen, I picked one that we worked on a little bit, and what I would emphasize there is to make sure we're talking about lessons learned and not just lessons documented. It's already a significant step to document them, but if they are indeed learned, then they would we would be able to show impacts. In other words, something has to change if there is a lesson that is learned. Next slide, please. While this is not in the technical domain per se, and it also echoes what has been found in other activities up to date, there's also a parallel sort of need to improve some of the operational processes, and that would help a lot in implementing the GEF-wide platform that we're talking about. So some form of standardization of templates, again, as mentioned earlier, the syncing or synchronizing of some of the timelines would be very helpful. Next, please. And then the need to organize this content better. Once we have our definitions and our processes, of course, it comes into like, how do we organize this? Organization, the major reason we're concerned about this is, of course, the better organized the content, then that increases findability. Then everyone should not only know that it's there, they'll be able to access it much more easily. And this is typically just sort of being able to slice it up in different ways. The taxonomy involved, ideally very, very, very multifaceted, so you can search by country. You should also be able to, when we talk about lessons learned, for example, be able to search by theme, by a type of lesson learned. Just an example, random example, poor teamwork or poor communication is a theme that we should be able to find all the lessons learned associated with that, as well as searching by type of project. So this would be great to leverage the existing practices. Next slide, please. And last but not least, of course, we're all about the connection and the connectivity. So many, of course, are ready. Others are more reticent. This is not necessarily an ideological objection. It's more, again, this definition of scope. What would it mean to connect? So I guess we could summarize the most people that answered some variation of it depends. And so the definition of scope and the requirements is going to be a necessary preamble before proceeding further. And again, this is just also a best practice. Need to identify the content and what is that connection implies. Next slide, please. So this was, again, very quick overview, but and again, as mentioned earlier, there's more steps to be done here to continue the audit. But going back to the gold mining, there are a lot that exists that can be leveraged. Again, this is not by any means an exhaustive list. There were too many to mention today, given our time. But looking more into what people are already doing to see how we can make use of this as either inspiration or an actual model or an actual system that could perhaps be scaled up. And I believe in the, you have some examples there on the screen, and then in this session, we will be getting a presentation from Informea and having a better look at that particular one. And that's it, I believe. Next slide is, thank you, yes. Thank you very much.
Okay. Can you all hear me?
Yes, Yasmin,
Oh,
we
yes,
hear you.
perfect.
Yes.
Sorry, I got somewhat disconnected for 1 second. Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Kimis. I just, we are behind time. So are there any very burning, any questions regarding Kimis's presentation or what I have said? If you have any questions, please type in the chat. And in between presentations, we will try to get to it, or we will try to respond to you in chat, because we are running a little bit late. So I would like to go on to the next presentation, if that's okay. If there's a very burning question, here's a moment to say something, or please utilize the chat.
Nothing in the chat, just a comment about how interesting this presentation was.
Okay, fantastic. So then let's go on to our next presenter, who's joining us all the way from Australia. In fact, we have two participants from Australia with us today. Our two staff members, Scientific and Technical Advisory Panel members, Graciela Metternich and Mark Stafford Smith, are kindly joining. It's very late there, I know, but we are very grateful for your participation. Graciela, I believe you are going to make the presentation. Graciela is a professor of environmental geography in the environmental management program of the School of Biological, Earth and Environmental Sciences at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. And Mark is an advisor and researcher on adaptation and sustainable development based in Australia, with a very distinguished long history of managing institutions and to conducting research in that area. So I'm going to now invite Graciela to tell us, give us some insights from the Scientific and Technological Advisory Panel of the GEF. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine, and yes, good night from down under, and thank you for giving us this bit of time to put forward some of the ideas that staff has in regards to the knowledge management and learning. Staff has argued for a long time that knowledge management and learning are crucially linked. In fact, the purpose of knowledge management is really faster learning in all sorts of ways for the GEF partnership. In our view, it's crucial that to establish a clear purpose for which knowledge management and learning strategy can flow. I guess, as it has been said by you, Jasmine, and by the preliminary finding, it's really easy to and tempting to jump too quickly into tools and platforms without having a clear scope. What is the people and really the knowledge that is often in their heads that makes it knowledge management and learning everyone business. And this is a point that we took for our title from a presentation of last December by Edie Ijaz at the last advisory meeting that you held. Staff has articulated the need for a strategy to encompass this several times over the past decade, and this short presentation is to just touch again on the headlines from our paper that is that has been already posted for the forthcoming council. The value of knowledge as an asset has long been recognized by the GEF, and managing knowledge for learning within the GEF partnership should help the GEF create and transform knowledge into action, innovation, and change for improved management. The previous speaker was mentioning the importance of definitions, and in regards to knowledge management, there are many, but one that touches that we mention in our paper is that knowledge management brings together organizational processes, information processing technologies, organizational strategies, and culture. All of that for the enhanced management and leverage of human knowledge and learning to the benefit of an organization. Now, this definition that we mention in our paper emphasizes the breadth of players and the activities that need to be encompassed in an effective knowledge management and learning strategy for the GEF. It also highlights that knowledge management and learning must consider the processes of engagement and capacity building that have been said a minute ago as much or more than tools and IT systems. And this is particularly so because knowledge can be both tacit and explicit and implicit. And many times implicit knowledge, such as the insights and experience of heads of team members that work on part-time basis or may work on a project basis and then leave, often accounts for as much as 90% of an organization's knowledge and is often poorly managed when the staff leaves. The lead also emphasizes on how knowledge, action, and learning form a mutually reinforcing cycle, that knowledge and learning that is not used soon waste away. And this action cycle occurs in GEF projects, at the portfolio level, and throughout the whole GEF partnership and recipient countries. So the strategy has, in our view, to pay attention to all of this. In the end, we emphasize that again, that the knowledge management and learning is really everyone's business, and every team member from the recipient country, from the GEF agencies, and from the secretariat is a knowledge worker at the end of the day. And everyone needs to understand the importance of knowledge management and learning to help create a culture in which that way of working flourishes. This doesn't mean that we have some mega centralized system, because of course the agencies, we just saw in the previous presentation, agencies, conventions, and many countries have their own approaches. But it does mean establishing some common approaches and principles that can then lead to knowledge management and learning as a distributed system that can work well. So things that, starting from the GEF goal that is articulated in the GEF positioning framework, essentially to achieve system transformation that delivers the durable global environmental benefit are the part of the GEF mandates, and that we all agree the world needs. There are many issues that are mentioned in the GEF 8 documents and that will affect the achievement of this higher goal. And staff see that some key ones that are related to knowledge management and learning include supporting more rapid learning and application of to keep up with accelerating rates of change, ensuring that innovation and learning is systematized, is durable, and is kept up to date, working across internal and external silos, horizontally to support policy coherence and integration, but also working across levels vertically to help merge top-down and bottom-up actions and across countries horizontally to inform priorities and improve policy coherence. And demonstrating also that GEF investments are delivering greater impact to encourage further investment and to maintain support among people throughout the GEF partnership. So the terms of reference that we had at hand as we were working that, and you have summarized the previous findings, Jasmine, have been, we have hidden about 4 key elements. And staff believes that this +1, the very first one that you see here on the top, the one on leadership and governance, this can form the basis for a more formal theory of change that will help to get clarity on the right balance of priority of activities that might need to be designed. Working through these 5 pathways, we'll come up with a theory of change that Mark is going to describe in the next slide. The details perhaps are going to be too much to absorb in one slide, but then again, the explanations and the graphic are available in the paper of the Council. What we would like to emphasize is that the details here might not be perfect, but our main point as the knowledge management and learning strategy needs to have a very well structured theory of change along these lines, whatever it might look like in detail in response to consultations with all of you. So Mark, I now pass on to you.
Yeah, thanks, Graciela. And yes, again, thanks for having us here, Yasmin and others. And I mean, I have a diagram here, which is the classic, I'm sorry, you can't read all the details in it. So I'm sorry about that, but I think as Graciela just said, the point here is not actually the detailed words that are in it, but more just the concept of having a structured framing for the strategy as things go forward. So I think the content in here resonates very strongly with some of the things that you've been presenting, Yasmin and Kamiz as well, and it resonates particularly, I think, with Kamiz's point that that defining the scope and the requirements, and then through that coming to some definitions of terms like what lessons learned mean in the GEF context, and how those get turned into action, as Graciela was just saying. I think our strongest message here is that it needs a structured framework, which could be something like this, no doubt modified with consultation and everything else, but a structured framework which can really provide a way of ensuring that we get coherence in the approach across the GEF, and that different elements of what's being done can synergize and add to each other. So I mean, I don't think there's anything particularly helpful for me to go through this in great detail, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. I think the first thing which Graciela just mentioned is that 4 of these pathways are essentially the ones that you're pursuing in the background document. But the 5th one, the first one, in fact, is this issue of strong leadership and organizational culture, and coupled with that, processes for ensuring succession, passing over through succession of implicit learning, because I think this is probably a very underrated part of our thinking about knowledge management and learning, the degree to which a lot of it is just captured in people's heads. And that speaks, very much to needing very strong leadership to get that shift in culture, which recognizes that and accepts it, and actually puts more resources and effort into it. As you mentioned earlier, might be needed, Yasmin. So, I mean, that's part of it. Other elements of this speak to things you've already also talked about, which are trying to get the doing part of the cycle. So, seeing what's happening, learning from that, capturing the knowledge, learning from it, thinking about what the implications might be, what the consequences for those lessons learned might be, but then making sure that there are those incentives that you mentioned to take advantage of those lessons and actually apply them in future GEF projects. And then another element of this, I think, is also monitoring and becoming adaptive about the knowledge management and learning system, so that one's learning about how effective it is and ensuring that it is actually delivering the ability to target solutions that have a better return on investment, or however you care to frame that sort of thing. So that gives us our sort of 5 pathways there, which I haven't gone into in detail, but as Graciela said, are in the paper. I just wanted to pull that together, though. Could you go on to the last slide, Graciela? Thank you. Just with a few sort of closing comments to try and keep us on time here. I mean, I think we've all seen this, and I think we all know this intuitively, although we probably need more data to demonstrate it, to really prove it. That actually doing knowledge management and learning well does actually deliver better results, and that's really important. I think this point that in the end, knowledge and learning isn't about stuffing something into a system; it's about using it. So actually having this knowledge learning action cycle is an incredibly important part of this, and trying to design a strategy that ensures that that's sort of a central focus is important. The point which we'll just make yet again which is that knowledge management and learning is everyone's business. And unless we have a culture where everyone acknowledges that and actually sees the benefit of it and sees the incentive of getting better results because of accessing the previous monolith of knowledge that might be there, unless we have that, then we're always going to be losing. Knowledge is always going to be leaking away, and lessons are always going to be leaking away. So thinking about those incentives for achieving that's really important. And then in our view, this issue of structuring a clear theory of change, we're asking projects to do this, and we really have to impose it on ourselves too, I think, to think about a clear theory of change, which particularly, I mean, a key thing in a theory of change, I think, is to be able to look at the system and say, have we done the necessary, but also the sufficient things to achieve better outcomes? And that's really important. And just a last click there, please, Graciela. Graciela's made this point, but I mean, we do want to emphasize this is not simply then about creating some mega system, because there is so much out there already. It's much more about trying to make existing systems interoperable and creating incentives to do that. But I think the thing we want to say more than anything out of thinking about this is that in addition to the system, it needs at least an equal focus on the social processes, really, and all of these implicit knowledge issues that will actually enable a system to be taken up and used. It's much easier, I'm afraid, for all of us scientists to think about structuring a data management repository than it is to think about all those social processes that actually create the incentives to use it. So we would urge, as the strategy continues to develop, we would urge both this structuring and also this balancing of the social process side of all of this, which includes things like the South-South knowledge exchange and so on. And it was actually in our paper on South-South knowledge exchange last year that this little diagram was in there, which again I won't go through, but just outlines some of the things that link together the social elements and the more systems, the more sort of platform elements that might be part of a future system. So with that, thank you, Yasmin. And the paper that's got a bit more detail in it is also available as part of the council papers, but we can pop the location, the web reference into the chat if you like now. And I wish you very well in trying to do this, because I think it is so important. It is such an important part of what the GEF does. And also I'll just apologize probably for Graciela too, but certainly for me, that I shall try and listen to a bit more of this, but probably disappear in a little while. But thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark and Graciela. This was very, very useful. I think it's very exciting to see that we are almost on the same page. I mean, your key messages are very well taken, and I hope that you can participate in our visioning workshop that's coming up. And in fact, ahead of time, it might be very useful for us to meet with staff, with you guys, to go over your recommendations regarding especially the theory of change, because that is going to bring about the common understanding as to what we are doing and where we should be going, the A to B, where are we and where are we going and how are we going to get there, and the different pathways. And I really liked your diagram there that shows the different pathways and ways of thinking about those pathways. And that is, we are trying to pick and choose, what is practical and what we can actually implement, and across the partnership, working with the different partners. But I think you would be able to guide us through that process. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for joining at this late hour. And I hope that everybody can read the staff paper that is actually posted. I believe the link is being provided in the chat. That is summarized today during the presentation, but a lot more detail is available in that paper. So we look forward to engaging with staff more on this issue in the coming days. We now have next on our agenda a very interesting presentation that is looking at a technical solution. And in this in today's event, we are looking at both technical solutions, and also we're also looking at, and we will talk about this later in the agenda, face-to-face, more social exchange, as Steph was mentioning, we are trying to address both ways of knowledge exchange across the partnership at a technical level, at a higher level, and also at the country level, face-to-face level. I would like to now invite Eva Duer, who is going to present to us a very interesting initiative that has been in the works for the past decade or so. It is the UN Information Portal on Multilateral Environmental Agreements, which brings together all of the conventions that we serve and more, and other partners, and enables information, data, and knowledge exchange around the global environmental issues. It started off with legal issues, and Eva will tell us all about how it was structured and how it functions, and whether or not there's an opportunity for the GEF to join in or to learn from this wonderful international knowledge sharing platform. Eva is a legal officer and the team leader for Informaea at the Law Division at the UN Environment, and she's going to now present to us. We have a short video that she would like us to show at the very beginning. So my colleague Ted is going to show the video now, and then we're going to invite Eva to share her presentation.
A flock of birds like this is one of nature's wonders, a symbol of the interconnectedness of our world, constantly under pressure from climate change, toxins, development, destruction of habitat, and 100 other threats. Over the last 50 years, the world has come together to secure protection for our planet and the millions of species it supports, including our own. The international community has agreed legally binding treaties and instruments which allow countries to commit to preserving the planet for future generations. The treaties and agreements themselves are an integrated web of environmental law. And in order to ensure that stakeholders had the best access to the available information, an intelligent tool was required. This groundbreaking resource is called Informaea, and it's the online home of the world's multilateral environmental agreements, or MEAs. Informaea provides a bird's-eye view of all major environmental treaties across key topics and how they relate to every country and region in the world. The keyword search tool allows for rapid retrieval of information and, through intelligent cross-referencing, delivers a powerful research capability. Environmental decision makers can use this unrivaled database to explore best practice and design their country's policies in line with global environmental legislation. MEAs have different objectives and scope, but their effects are often overlapping and sometimes interdependent. All UN member countries have signed up to one or more MEAs. The direction of travel is for more and more countries to ratify and implement more and more agreements. The glossary section is where topics can be searched to provide an explanatory definition and links to all of the relevant treaty articles and documents. The e-learning platform is a key benefit of the portal. It provides free, self-paced introductory courses on each MEA. At the end of each course, a certificate of completion can be obtained. Everyone involved in the environment community, from governments, international organizations, civil society and the private sector, can benefit from accessing the Informaea portal. It organizes the world's environmental law for those who need it, and it helps the world steer and implement global environmental policy. Informaea supports a path to a safer, more sustainable future. Spread the word.
Okay, thank you so much for this wonderful video. Before Eva starts her presentation, I just want to put a plug in. Imagine if the GEF lessons from every single GEF project that the countries implement in the context of these multilateral environmental conventions, those lessons could be found on Informaea with the with a click. Wouldn't that be amazing? So that's the kind of aspiration we have when we, when we reached out to Informea to tell us how they do things, what do they do, how does one connect to them, and what can we learn from them? So here's Eva to tell us all about that. Thank you, Eva. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Yasmin. Let me first ask you whether you can see and hear me well.
Yes. We can see you, but we don't see a presentation yet.
Coming up. Oh, okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, because I, for some reason, can't see myself. So I'm now sharing the presentation. And yes, I think the video has kind of saved the time, so I wouldn't have to go into explaining what the website does. As you have seen, it brings together a lot of information, and it does so to bridge a gap that was early on identified. And I would like to speak about this because we talked about scope. The fact is that in the field of environmental law, you have a huge fragmentation across institutions, very different from international trade law, where everything is under the umbrella of the World Trade Organization or international labor law. In the case of environmental law, you have fragmentation across a lot of UN institutions and more, and a lot of different international treaties that are governed through different organizations. And that is what the use case was, and that is why the MEAs came together and said, we all have mandates to work synergetically, but we kind of lack the tools to bridge this gap. At this moment, we have 26 international treaties that are hosted by 5 different UN organizations and the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, who are member of this group. And it covers basically the biodiversity, the land, the climate, chemicals, and marine and freshwater clusters. And of course, there are also cross-cutting elements, like in the case of the regional economic commissions. It certainly covers the 5 treaties that are supported by the GEF. And of course, there has been support from the European Union over the years and other governments, and we work with partners like the Food and Agricultural Organization. We're having projects with the World Trade Organization and others, always in the field of environmental law. And as you have seen the portal before, at the moment, it brings together a wealth of documents that are all originating from different partners and different places, and then organizes them according to a common terminology that has been worked on over the years. And I think I will focus, in the interest of time, basically on how this strategy, so how this has been governed. Just very quickly, there is a user base that is expanding. There is a multilingual wrapper available. Of course, most of the original information is in English. We can see which countries are the strongest consumer of the tools, and we can also see which pages are most visited in the context of the review. We can see which services are most appreciated by users, how they find the website, and we can see that especially the online courses which provide for learning, but also the search engine and the treaty pages are quite well received. And there is an average rating of the usefulness of the content. Of course, there's always room for improvement, but it's a point from which we are comfortable to grow. And we are also, of course, always trying to find out, because this is a public-facing knowledge tool that connects public sources of information to stakeholders who are supposed to bring about change on the ground. How does it help you, achieve more with the same? And then, it's very difficult to create this link to the actual result of a knowledge management effort. So this is something that is very important for us to be able to tell the story as to why it's useful to do so. Just very quickly about the history of the initiative. So when the MEAs were coming together to discuss what information do we want to share for the benefit of our common parties, there were a few things that they have given themselves as terms of reference for the years to come. And the most important one here was interoperability and agreed formats, protocols, and standards. And that was because it was very important for these MEAs not to have an extra effort to undergo to share their data once more at an aggregated level. And so it was important that their business processes would not be impacted, and that the source of information, which was the MEA secretariats, would be strengthened through the process and not some kind of, a higher level institution. So that was important. And then the next thing was also to create a community of practice where lessons learned can be exchanged in the field of knowledge management in the different MEAs. And then, of course, also important to coordinate with other UN agencies and partners. And I think for this purpose, this is probably the element which then has translated into concrete steps. So the first step was that the Convention of Biological Diversity has to agree with the Basel Convention, with the Rotterdam Convention, with the Stockholm Convention and others, what is the format that we can all agree on when we collect our governing body decisions, our COP decisions, and then what is mandatory, what is not mandatory. So that was the first round of discussions. And then the second round of discussions amongst them was, which kind of mechanism do we choose to exchange this information? And the main mechanism was then an interoperable application programming interface that would allow the different repositories to speak to each other, to connect to each other, not only for the purpose of the Infomea portal, but also for the purpose, for instance, for the World Heritage Convention to share with their parties information on the iconic species that are migrating to these heritage conventions, so that they could have a bilateral data exchange on their own websites. So that was, of course, the underlying motivation. And then category of information, for category of information, these application programming interfaces were implemented over time, so, and are now monitored and maintained. And the most, I think, time-consuming element of this interoperability process was the finding of common semantic standards, because every MEA organizes its information according to its own agenda, to its own treaty, and to its own concepts. And at the same time, it is obvious that alien invasive species concept under the Convention of Biological Diversity is similar to the pest concept of the plant treaty under the Food and Agricultural Organization, and therefore relevant to exchange information, as well as important for the term of alien species under the Convention of Migratory Species. So it was important to agree that we have a common terminology that encompasses these individual differences. And that was a relevant time-consuming process. And through the years, this process has been supported by advanced artificial intelligence and other elements. And now it's possible to tag documents at scale, and to also allow then tag documents that come from an MEA to be translated to the higher text, so it can be retrieved at Infomea level, but also for the purpose of other tools. And that's just an example. So if you then upload a document, if you don't do it at scale, then you get the relevant terminology according to the thesaurus you want to choose, which could be the thesaurus of the Basel Convention, but also the thesaurus of Infomea, or even the thesaurus by the UNFCCC, for instance. And then lastly, on the community of practice, it is my impression that the time investment that MEAs put into this process without a hierarchical structure is very much guided by what is the return on this time investment. And very often it is the possibility to share learning and to exchange lessons and to exchange experiences, because very often the knowledge management units in the different institutions are rather small and they really benefit from this exchange. So I think this is a very important component. Yes, so I think in essence, this covers a bit the history as what the information is doing. There is also what the initiative is doing. There's also a history, which I will not go into detail, but just to say how incremental and bit by bit this process was developing around concrete goals and concrete knowledge needs, and has been slowly expanding over the years. And the last 2 years, where online meetings and online coming together, online steering committee meetings. I'm trying to get back to a home screen. Apologies, I'm trying to access my home screen. Yes, now I can. Just very quickly, since this Infomea initiative belongs to the MEAs, is governed by the MEAs, but has a lot of potential for expansion, very soon partnership and spin-off processes developed, so that the same database that is kind of nourished by these different sources can then be used for other purposes that are governed by other processes. And this is something I think that could be interesting in the context of this discussion and many other discussions, which is, for instance, in the context of the World Trade Organization, it is important to see which environmental provisions or which trade-related provisions are found in key multilateral environmental agreements, because they might then be relevant for the application of some exceptions under Article 20 of GATT, and then this would in turn create other processes. So it's usually a practice of the trade of the WTO to collect provisions from MEAs in a publication, but then in the context of Infomea, this whole process is going to move online to facilitate the process of tracing new provisions in agreements, so that then these can be made available both to WTO stakeholders and to the MEA stakeholders who have an interest in trade. And another example is the Global Judicial Institute, where the global judiciary is trying to come together to exchange lessons learned. And again, they have asked to use the initial infrastructure of Infomea for the purpose of an independent tool that again is fed from courses from Infomea content that has been collected through the MEA's initiative, and then complemented with global judicial decisions on climate change, on biodiversity, which then again fertilize the Infomea collection. And then last but not least, the Law Environment Assistance Platform, which also tries to bring together requests from countries for technical assistance in the field of the implementation of multilateral environmental agreements or international environmental law at large, which again uses the content from Infomea, but has become something rather independent. I just wanted to show you a bit how this technical clearinghouse mechanism intends to work. But I realized that I would have to change the window I'm sharing, which I'm trying to do here. So if you wanted to see how the technical assistance platform looks, which again is powered by Infomea, it's something very different, where it is expected that technical assistance requests will be submitted by a country, which then leads to an activity tracker that can be filtered by country, by status, by a topic. And I think this is also an aspect that could be very interesting to other project-driven processes as well, to see what's going on in different countries on different topics. So with this, I think in the interest of time, I will return to you, Yasmin, and I'm happy to answer any questions that might be there. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Eva. This is very interesting for us. As I believe other stakeholders can also appreciate, it's wonderful to have a kind of a clearinghouse, a gateway to data and information that's contained in all different conventions and initiatives that spill over from the conventions. This is very interesting for us because the GEF was set up originally to serve these conventions, to help developing countries comply with the recommendations and requirements under these conventions. And our projects are financed to generate global environmental benefits that are in line with the mission of these international conventions. So for us to be able to connect to the knowledge and data that is kind of circulating as a result of these conventions and to learn from it, and also to add GEF lessons and GEF learning and knowledge generated from our investments to be shared at that level amongst the different conventions, that is very, very interesting to us. So do you see, just my question to you is on behalf of our stakeholders, do you see a potential for the GEF to be integrated or to be connected to this system? Have you had similar examples? You kind of mentioned a few already, but kind of like funding institutions like us. to be able to connect? And what would be your recommendation for us?
I mean, definitely it would be extremely interesting, especially in the context of the 5 GEF supported MEAs, to see where can lessons be learned, and especially if you're talking of learning from projects that are targeted at implementation of environmental law. Obviously, that would be a very, very concrete piloting area where one could try to see how can this knowledge be harvested and how can it be passed on to other processes. I mean, I can only imagine that in the context of the activity tracker, many projects that are highly relevant, even in same countries, might be supported through GEF. Then it's very important to be able to find those projects to allow for synergies on the ground. So there is so many concrete examples, in addition to, of course, doing maybe the opposite, sharing ratification status of countries, which MEAs have these countries ratified, that activity is happening on implementation, also again to promote synergies. So from our perspective, it would be super, super interesting to explore this further.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And my last question will be very quickly, how do you see engagement from country focal points, convention focal points in the various countries? Do they utilize Informea? Are they in any way participating? Do you have any outreach to these convention focal points? Because we do actually interact with them as well as the GEF.
The thing is that the whole Informea tool was developed for the benefit of the focal points to MEAs, who are very often focal points to more than one MEAs in their country, and who very often are burdened with the process of getting the relevant information in one place. Also, the focal points are, of course, the primary constituency of the individual MEAs. So we are reaching out to the whole lot of them. Of course, we are collecting them. Then there are several thousands in our database. But we are not engaging with them directly, because we are just a small facilitating unit. But we are informing them of new content, informing them of developments on Informea, doing so in a more regular basis through the MEAs who are basically in the driver's seat here. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We look forward to engaging with you further. Unfortunately, we don't have much time today to discuss, but there are many topics that I'm sure we would be very interested to discuss with you. But we are going to hopefully see you participate in our future events around the strategy for the GEF, and we hope to engage with Informea in more depth in the future. Thank you so much, Eva. Now we're going to thank you. We're going to continue with our presentation flow, which is going to be the special session on the GEF-funded knowledge hubs and platforms as part of integrated programs, integrated approach pilots, and programs funded by the GEF. And this session is going to be moderated by my colleague, Alok Barnwal, who is a senior climate change specialist and a program manager at the GEF Secretariat. He is going to lead the session. There will be several presentations from lead agencies. And at the end, we also have 2 other GEFSEC colleagues who have gracefully agreed to participate and be discussant at the session. Jean-Marc Sunasawi and Adriana Moreira will be joining us. And Alok, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yasmin. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. So welcome everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. And thank you for joining the session. I'm sure the previous sessions have been really quite enriching. Yasmin has introduced me. Just to reintroduce again, my name is Alok Barnwal. I'm a senior climate change specialist at the GEF Secretariat. I coordinate the Sustainable Cities program, one of the integrated programs of the GEF. And I also work in the climate change adaptation team, which manages the Least Developed Countries Fund and the Special Climate Change Fund. So it's my absolute privilege to moderate this very important session of this advisory group meeting today. And I understand it is like one of the longest sessions among many that are being discussed today. So you have already heard from Yasmin and other speakers that knowledge is a key pillar and tool for the GEF and its partnership to deliver global environmental benefits. It's a key asset which ensures sustainability and scaling up of impacts. In the GEF 8, it is identified as one of the essential elements of country empowerment also. You heard about the knowledge management approach that we have, and also how it is evolving with changing context, with an objective of making it more effective for all key stakeholders and the changing strategies that we are having, and also all our partners and countries in light of changing climate and other environmental and economic context. So in this changing context, in response to IEO's evaluation of GEF's knowledge management, the GEF is now aiming to develop a knowledge management strategy and action, and to further strengthen the technical knowledge management capabilities for greater knowledge capture, exchange, and dissemination. Clearly, the development of this strategy will build on the various initiatives and lessons that we have from various knowledge and learning initiatives. And it is in this context we will hear today from 3 very strategic and flagship global programs of the GEF. These include the Resilient Food Systems IAP Integrated Approach Pilot of GEF 6, the Sustainable Cities Impact Program, which is called as Urban Shift. It started in GEF 6 and this is now in GEF 7 phase and will continue in GEF 8, and the Global Wildlife Program. So these 3 programs have dedicated knowledge platforms, and they represent the different range of GEF's investments, where knowledge is a distinct program component and entry point, and also a driver or a lever for transformation. So we have 3 speakers today. Yasmin already gave you the hint, who are they? So, they are from the lead agencies of these 3 programs, and they will be sharing some of the key features of the program, the approach that they have taken for knowledge management, some highlights and successes, and the challenges, and most importantly, the lessons they have learned in this program, which will surely inform the new strategy and also going forward our programming. And also, it could potentially inform many other programs of our partners. So, so I'll now go to the speakers, and before that, just to let you know that please feel free to send your comments or questions in the chat function, using the chat function. We will see if we can include it during the discussions, but given the time is really short and it is not really doing the justice for the 3 such important program, which large, with big range and so many things to learn and discuss. But for sure, we will consider all the comments and observations from you as we move forward in developing the strategy and in our programming. So with this, may I now invite our first speaker, Yawo Jonki Tenu, who is the task manager of the Resilient Food Systems Integrated Approach Pilot. He's from IFAD. So Jonki, over to you to share your experience from the Resilient Food Systems IAP with a focus on the knowledge management approach that is there in the program.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Jonki Tenu. I'm leading the Resilient Food System program at IFAD. Next slide, please. Okay, so as you know, the Resilient Food System program is one of the GEF integrated pilots. The program is a multi-agencies program started in 2017 for 5 years. It's a program for a total budget about $1 billion with GEF contribution around 116 million. The program is led by IFAD and being implemented in 12 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Next. Next slide, please. Yeah, those are the country that we are covering in sub-Saharan Africa next. And the program is designed around 3 main pillars. The first one is, to engage the different stakeholders to strengthen the institutional framework. We act by, identifying the best practices that we try to bring at scale, and then we track the key achievement to guide the policy dialogue and also influence the decision making across our 12 countries. Next, in terms of knowledge management, we are doing knowledge and learning activity across the 12 country projects, and also we are trying to track that knowledge at the regional level to also guide the policy dialogue and engagement with our regional partner. To do that, we have tried to develop a very comprehensive communication and knowledge management strategy with an implementation plan. And we also develop what we call knowledge management toolkit as a practical guide for knowledge management that we use to support our 12 country projects. And also we develop some knowledge toolkit as a practical guidance doing communication, because we have a very strong linkage between communication and knowledge. And also we have developed, our monitoring and evaluation plan that help us, to develop our knowledge products. Next. How we do knowledge. So the program has put in place a strong learning, peer learning system through the regional workshop that we organize every year. And also we have some learning labs, field trip, a virtual knowledge center that you can find on our website. And also we have several other components facilitating our vibrant community of practice that operate within agriculture sector, natural resource management, and food security. We develop several tools that help us, to do knowledge, to capture and disseminate knowledge. The first one is our website, where you can find different tools and also our knowledge center. We produce some knowledge brief series, monthly newsletter, and internal bulletin, a social media campaign, and also we organize some side events at the global and continental events. We are also trying to continuously build on what existing in the past initiative. So we have a strong interaction with Great Green Wall initiative. We are working with Outdone Paths, especially to track some best practices from Terra Africa, and also we are working with African Risk Capacity, to try to track more information from them and to promote what we are doing to support our country. Next slide, please. In terms of knowledge, we are also using our knowledge, to guide the policy dialogue and also decision making across our 12 countries and also at the regional level. The program has established some multi-stakeholder platforms, and that platform we promote knowledge management through the different platforms that we have put in place. Currently, we have at national level 21 platforms. We also have more than 60 platforms at the district level. Local level, we also promote some platforms that help us, to influence the policy at different levels. We also develop a science and the policy interface, and also the resilience atlas. Those are the platform that we also use to disseminate our knowledge. Next step, please. Next slide, please. So in terms of knowledge resources, at the beginning, we target more than 400. Now we are about to achieve all our knowledge and communication tools that are available on our website, can be consulted. Next slide, please. Yeah, we also under the program try to use the digital solution for knowledge management. As you know, the monitoring and evaluation is the basis of all knowledge project that we are developing. So we have put in place what we call smart knowledge, smart M&E system, which is online many system that that is connected to the country project and help us to track information from the country project that help us to produce our knowledge papers. And we also have those digital platform connected to our website. All those digital solutions can be accessed through our program website. Next, please. Okay, in terms of challenges, knowledge management is not yet to be treated as a cost staff function, to support evidence-based and decision-making when we consider our country project. Sometimes the only person who is doing the M&E is the one who, also support the knowledge management. And due to the sometimes complexity with the M&E, so the focus always is on the M&E. The knowledge management become something that they are not really focused on. So that is a main challenge we have faced during the program implementation. The second one is lack of clarity and coherence on the monitoring approach. Sometimes the indicator to track as we are working on the resilient food security were not adequately addressed at design. So there is no M&E staff, foreseen at the regional level. It was difficult, for us to, come up with our knowledge M&E system, and also from there to produce our knowledge paper at the regional level. The sustainability of the knowledge platform and products, and also the many systems are not adequately addressed at design. We are now working on that, how all the resources that we have produced during the implementation of the program, how we will sustain all those after the project phase out. So something that we need also to consider when we design the new programs. For the multi-country programs, what we identify is we have the different reporting templates, from the different agencies that limit a little bit the knowledge tracking across the GEF implementation agency supported project in terms of, how we aggregate the information to produce knowledge and how we compare knowledge across the different countries. It's also a main challenge that we have faced. So in terms of, next slide. in terms of recommendation, we think that we need more provision for knowledge management and M&E. So, and this needs to be done, designed on relationship between M&E, knowledge, communication, and advocacy, including the different capacity and expertise that need to be, provided, as well as the regional level and country level. We also identify during the implementation that the investment in the translation cannot be overlooked during the design for the multi-country program. If we want to really, as we are working with the smallholder farmer, sometimes there is a need to translate our knowledge paper or products in the local language, and also it could be French and English sometimes. So we have faced challenges because this aspect was overlooked during the design.
Yonki, apologies. We are running a bit late. I hope you will be able to wrap up in next minute or so.
It's almost done now. The online monitoring system also provides, an easy access to update information, and they help us in terms of improving the decision making across the program, and also the programmatic knowledge management, promote the dialogue. And so next slide, I think I will stop here, and this is the last. Yeah, if you want to learn more about our system, then you go on our website. You can find all those information that I highlighted. I will stop here and thank you very much. If there is any question, then I come to provide some more detail. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is very useful. I'm sure there are very useful lessons. Particularly, I like the point on sustainability and making the knowledge management work consistent with M&E. I think these are really useful lessons as we move forward in developing our strategy and in our programming. And also some of the points that you highlighted, I think, are important, like this work around science and policy interface. I think that is something that we always talk about, and I believe these knowledge platforms are the right tools to make this really happen. So thanks a lot. Our next speaker is Ruth from United Nations Environment. She manages the Sustainable Cities Integrated Program, which we call as Urban Shift. And I'll invite her to share her experience of the knowledge work under the Sustainable Cities Program. I'm personally honored to coordinate this program on part of GEF. As I said, this was launched in GEF 6, and now it is in GEF 7 phase, and we are going to extend it further in the GEF 8. So, and knowledge is quite central to meeting the urban transformation and sustainability goals that we have under this program. So you'll hear more from Ruth. So Ruth, over to you.
Very much, Alok. I hope everybody can hear me. Is that the case? Okay. Ikuko, I hope you have my latest presentation. Yeah. Okay. If there is a discrepancy. Okay, great. Fantastic. So thank you very much for having us here. It's an honor to be able to share the work that UNEP has been doing in partnership with many other implementing agencies and cities organization. And I think this is one of the very interesting programs. The next slide, please. So we are leading this, but we work with the UNDP, the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, ICLEI, C40, and WRI. And we just want to highlight that. So next slide, please. Okay. So just to say that this is an evolution of GEF 6 and GEF 7. In GEF 6, there was already the integrated pilot that already drew a lot of lessons that was led by the World Bank and is still ongoing. It's coming to a closure. Some projects are beginning to sunset. And together between GEF 6, that it's called the Global partnership for sustainable, the global platform for sustainable cities, and GEF7 that we're calling Urban Shift. We together gather 51 cities in 17 countries, and it's a lot of resources from the GEF and a lot of leverage co-finance, as you can see. And I think what is important to highlight is that as we evolved in GEF7, we cover as well the cities and the partners and the governments that were in the previous program. So we really want to enlarge the approach and not actually be focused on only on the GEF7. And this is proving to be a very interesting approach because I think it allows for a lot of lessons learned and exchange between the two phases. The program as a whole has country and city level interventions, and the focus is to provide integrated solutions and integrated investments in the selected cities and countries. And it's heavily based on evidence-based policymaking. And I'll show you some tools that we are using to promote that. The global platform has a dual function. It's a knowledge management function, but there is a coordination actually function. And I think that these things are also interlinked because the coordination and the engagement with the countries and the cities is actually what make it live, the platform itself. And we have asked the participating cities and countries to put resources from their country allocations to be able to actually engage more with the knowledge platform, because otherwise it will be limited, the resources that we'll have for that participation. And to actually, we have monitoring targets for them to draw lessons learned and bring back that knowledge from their projects to the platform. Next slide, please. And I think that is an important feature. What we call currently the GEF7, it's called Urban Shift, and the global platform itself has work streams that were based on lessons learned from the GEF6 actually first pilot. So we have national dialogues that actually try to really focus on this multi-level governance that tries to link the national governments with the city space, capacity building, city academies that were largely developed during the development phase of the program framework document with the cities and the countries participating. So the teams and the thematic focus could be actually of interest of them. So there is always this interaction between the global platform and the country project to be actually at the same time on the forefront of innovation, but also responding to the needs and to the levels of development and skills of the countries and cities that are participating. There is a strong part on advocacy, is where actually the science policy interface will take place. The more cities have a space in the MEAs, the more actually these will come back to specific policy actions. There is a lot of focus on finance and bringing the private sector, where we're using spatial data for baselines. We have a lot of webinars that prove to be very useful because we started our program together with the COVID, and we have been online for a long time. And the capacity building urban shift labs that are proving very interesting there in cities. And one of the objectives of the program is also to raise ambition and climate action. So cities can also be an actor of that movement. Next slide, please. I want to go into these, and I'm sure that Jeff will share with the colleagues. This is just to show you what has happened so far. And we have some data that we are collecting in terms of webinars, people who have participated, city academies and things like that. And I won't spend time, but what I would like to say is that the website has been central to this work, and we are doing a very hybrid approach of online courses, but also face-to-face events. And I think that flexibility allowed us to really navigate during the difficult COVID period. Maybe we can move on. Next slide, please, Ikuko, if you don't mind. This is just to give you a snapshot in our website. Track the events. As you see, the first two ones are face-to-face events, whereas the other ones you see pictures of us as in this setting. And we actually are building on the work that we have with the city networks. And I think partnerships within the platform for knowledge management is essential. There is no way that 3-4 partners within a topic will be able to really understand all the things and trends and have the capacity and the outreach. And I think working in partnership really is proven to be a very amplifier effect of the knowledge that we want to share with cities worldwide, but also the cities that are participating. Next slide, please. Just to give you an overview, we started with the Global Platform for Sustainable Cities from the World Bank. It was very focused on integrated approaches, a lot of work on indicators for sustainability, urban framework things, and these are the materials that they have been developing. They're very extremely useful. They have new initiatives as well. And the core of the beginning of all the integrated pilot was how actually the cities should plan in an integrated way and break the silos. And we have been evolving to include biodiversity in land use planning, circularity in land use planning, and now bring nature into cities. And it's been a movement that it's evolving. And the World Bank has been actually spearheading these in their first program. So maybe next slide, please. Alok, if you want to complement anything later on, please feel free.
I'll do that, but if you can
okay, fantastic.
a bit quickly, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem. So just the lessons learned from the GEF 6 pilot, what we have tried we were briefed by the GEF on that, and we tried to include in the next phase is how to actually you have a more direct communication with the participating cities, so you can actually tailor the knowledge products and the delivery mechanism to the beneficiaries, to the city's needs. And we try to do that, and I'll show you some ideas and of what we have done and some shortcomings and some successes. More emphasis on peer exchanges, so allowing these direct learning from participating countries and cities, but also with other cities that are not necessarily participating, a stronger financial element and private sector engagement, and more coordination between the child projects and the global platform. Next slide, please. And what we have done is try to use that lessons learned and build our delivery models to actually address these issues. So we worked initially with city assessment, so we could build a thematic focus of the delivery based on the city needs and the country child projects, but also on the trends on innovation in sustainability in cities. Climate action, it's very important to work with a specific target with mayors that are committed to raise the ambition to fulfill the Paris Agreement. We have actually organized the program around regions, and we have put regional coordinators in each region and with the language and the specific needs of the region, and they are actually linked directly with the cities. And this has proved to be a very interesting structure that really allows, as we have heard from Yonki, you have to have materials in the local language. You have to actually be able to reach out to a much broader audience, and you can only do that if you're responding to the needs, and then they will have the interest. Again, I'm not going to go too much into the details here. We're going to share these. But I think that the delivery models, the investor roundtables, is a response to the private sector investment, the national dialogues to the multi-level governance, the partnership engagement group to broaden the partnership, the finance academies to focus a little bit stronger on the finance. And that was the logic of the creation of this program. Maybe next slide, please. This is the thematic focus that have been, I think, co-created, and co-creation is a very important thing if you want the knowledge platform to be useful, meaningful to the country projects. And we have collectively selected strategic urban planning, urban biodiversity, nature-based solutions. I don't think that the specific teams are important in this discussion, but I think the co-creation and the focus that is interesting for the main beneficiaries is an important aspect. Next slide, please.
Yeah,
Ikuku, if you can,
Ruth,
yeah,
if you can
thanks.
wrap up in a minute.
Yeah, okay. Maybe 2 minutes more and I will wrap up because it's up to you. So the delivery and communication, I think that it's very important that you have global events, but when you do them, you localize the content if you really want your audience in the region to be interested in that. And then they will participate. You have translations, local speakers. It looks very obvious, but it really makes a difference. Effective capacity building really requires that you have a more pedagogical aspect to it. And this is key and it takes a lot of time to prepare things in a more pedagogical way. We need to have a well-resourced communication strategy. You really need to have a good website and easy to follow, to go. And interactive trainings is what is proving to be a very useful learning process. And I have seen in the International Waters colleague that said that, and that's the feedback that we're receiving, is that this interactive peer-to-peer exchange really makes a difference. Next slide, and I will wrap up. I'll leave just 1 point more, and the rest you can have with my things, is the issue of the regional coordinators I've already mentioned. Working in partnership, we established a partnership engagement group. Working with city networks have proved to be extremely important, and the multi-level governance, it's not here, it's in the next one, and then the next one, and now finalize. I'll next last slide, and it's a lesson learned that I would like to share, because I think the timing is a very important issue when you have a coordination platform and a knowledge management platform and child projects. And the problem that we have right here, right now, is that we started the global platform much before the child projects have started. And we're actually pacing and waiting for the child projects to be ready to have resources to participate in many things, but not only resources, organize themselves. So I think, and I see that now this is going to be more advanced in GEF 8. We have to find a way to actually have a maybe two-phase approach, where we have a development phase approach, where we help with the design and the constitution of the global knowledge platform and the child projects. But then a second phase when the knowledge management is more operational, and it has to be the timing parallel with the child projects. Otherwise, it's going to be a very big disconnect. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry if I
no, I am sorry. I mean, this definitely is not
trying to run here.
This definitely is not enough time for such big programs to, share all the lessons in just 8 to 10 minutes. But thanks a lot. I'll now I'll go to Lisa straight away. Lisa, over to you to share your experience from the Global Wildlife Program. I have some comments on the cities, which during the discussion, I'll try to complement what Ruth said. Lisa, over to you.
Thanks, Alok. And we're very pleased to be here to share some experiences from the Global Wildlife Program. You can see on the slide there our brilliant partners. Next slide, please. Some context. So GWP is demand driven. We exist because all of these countries you see here were interested in joining a program on combating wildlife trafficking. And our key incentive is that we offer the knowledge platform and coordination. There was no financial incentive for countries to join. Across GEF 6 and GEF 7, we have 37 projects across 32 countries, 19 in Africa, 10 in Asia, and 3 in Latin America. Next slide, please. What does the GWP knowledge platform look like? On the screen, you can see the main parts. We split our knowledge management strategy into 2 streams. That which is for a public audience, which you can see stretching across the top of the slide, and that which is targeted to our national project stakeholders. So those 37 project teams, the governments, and the GEF agencies that are supporting them. And we spend most of our effort in putting in place a knowledge platform that facilitates peer-to-peer exchange and learning across the GWP projects. And across the bottom half, you can see the measures that we're working on with our project teams, coordination calls, conferences, knowledge exchanges, and mentoring. And it's from this entire platform that we'll present some brief lessons today. Next slide, please. I have to start by quoting the movie Field of Dreams. We have learned that if we build the systems and processes effectively, that people will join, and then the cross-fertilization of ideas and lessons will happen. We don't need to overscript it. We just need to build the system, and if we get it right, the exchange will happen. It took some years for the GWP platform to mature, and particularly I'd say it took some time for us to see government and national stakeholders actively engage. By GEF 7, when the second phase happened and we had the system in place already, I'd say we had active engagement quicker for the new countries and the government members than we did for the initial 19 GEF 6 countries, when it was primarily GEF agencies at the start. So I'd emphasize that it takes time for a system to mature. We found that we get the best engagement when we provide a range of topics and engagement options, particularly as we've shifted to a virtual setting. This provides the opportunity to provide a range of additional virtual options for projects, and we're trying a number of those. We've learned that not everything will work, and sometimes you can't predict what will and what won't. We try to make continual adjustments to improve engagement, and we are always learning as we do things. And on the slide, I put a couple of examples of engagement. On the left, you see this is on a study tour in South Africa. Sandparks are there doing a mock demonstration of apprehending poachers. They've got helicopters and sniffing dogs. As expected, everyone has their camera on, lots of questions, very engaged. But on the right is Ricardo from the GWP project in Panama, and he's giving us great energy after 3 days of virtual conference. And finding this tucked away in the conference photo gave us so much reassurance that we were doing something right, and we're particularly proud of that photo. Next slide, please. We find we get the best success when we hand the agenda to projects, and other speakers mentioned on the importance of this also, and I think Ruth mentioned the importance of co-creation. Last year, we asked projects what topics they wanted to hear about at our annual conference. And universally, they said, we want to present and we want to hear other projects present. So we gave all projects the chance to present on knowledge that they could share across the Global Wildlife Program that might be beneficial for other projects, or knowledge that they needed from across the Global Wildlife Program. We called it the knowledge market, and beyond a few templates, we gave little guidance, and the floor was theirs. And we thought it was really successful. 26 projects participated, brilliant knowledge was shared, and we had great project-to-project exchange. And all we did was put in place the platform for them to do that. And the images on the slide highlight this and the importance of keeping technology simple and appealing. The GWP doesn't yet have a community of practice collaboration platform, and that's because we haven't yet found a technology that we think will be effective for all of our stakeholders and suit organizational IT boundaries, which are also important. But we did dabble in a short-term house-based site for our annual conference. We uploaded all of the conference session videos and PowerPoints, managed discussion threads asking people what topics matter, who do they want to learn from. And we had 75% of participants visiting the house-based site and 1/3 actively posting, which is considered good engagement for this technology. And you can see it looks like Facebook. It's easy to access, and we maintained it only for a 3 to 4 week window, so it was possible for people to maintain momentum. And one thing to highlight about this, running this in parallel with our virtual sessions allowed for all countries in the Global Wildlife Program to engage in their own time zone and reflect on the sessions. Next slide, please. Final lesson, knowledge products need sustained support for uptake. So we had a wake-up call recently where we found there was low awareness of publications that we have developed. So one project manager noted that he would Google on a certain topic and was always surprised when the search returned GWP produced documents on the GWP website, which he thought was very useful, but we thought it was interesting that he needed to Google to find that, and clearly, our communication on our products wasn't effective enough. So we've adjusted our efforts to provide more sustained technical support after we launch a product. The example on the screen is our Collaborative Management Partnerships Toolkit. Since its launch last year, we've done 2 rounds of targeted virtual training, including for projects in Congo Sustainable Landscapes led by UNEP. We've offered bilateral support to projects and government agencies, and we're preparing side events at key regional conferences. Next slide, please.
And Lisa, may I take this opportunity to request you to speed up and try to wrap up? We have a session where discussants will also share their experience. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, quickly, key challenge, maintaining engagement, particularly since virtual settings, keeping the right mix of topics and knowledge isn't always straightforward. We leave for projects to engage, but requires continual thought. Low capacity on sharing lessons learned. This is an excellent opportunity to reinvigorate agendas, but we found both in terms of processes we put in place and capacity of projects, there's a need to build capacity for that. Let's go to the next slide then, which is the final slide. Few thoughts on GEF role, how we can continue to improve this, encouraging programs to collaborate. Final thing I'll say, so a recent example of GWP collaboration with Amazon Sustainable Landscapes, you can see. We have an overlapping technical interest on ecological connectivity, so we're doing joint knowledge exchanges. This gives additional South-South cooperation, but one practical benefit is that it gives additional interpretation. It means we can offer Portuguese interpretation for GWP project teams, which we wouldn't normally do. So sometimes there are practical benefits from collaboration that you wouldn't normally see. We've listed a few practical ideas on how GEF could do this. Opportunities like this to share lessons is a great idea. We're happy to contribute our lessons and see how they can inform GEF 8. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lisa. This is very useful. I'm conscious of time. Yasmin, is it okay? Like we can stand for like a bit of kind of 10 minutes because we have two discussants, and then I would also like to go back to the three speakers to share, final remarks. So is it okay? Just to
let's try to make it like maybe 2 minutes per discussant and try to move on. Thank you so much, Alok. I know this is very interesting, but we are short on time.
I know. John Mark, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. It's first of all, I would like to thank all the organizers and the excellent presentation. There are, of course, cross-cutting messages.
Maybe you can introduce yourself just for
yes, sorry.
I should have done it, but just in rush of time.
Yeah. So my name is Jean-Marc Sinasamy. I'm a senior environment specialist at the GEF Secretariat. And I had the pleasure to coordinate the resilient food system, or the IP on food security, since the beginning. So John Key said that it was an amazing journey since 2017, but actually for us from the GEF Secretariat, it was the journey started a long time ago, actually. And so I would like to probably to provide just briefly 3 main messages and probably 2 key lessons and one challenge that are probably very applicable to not only to the resilient food system, but the other IP. Obviously, the knowledge management has been a structuring element of the resilient food system program. And when we're talking about the resilient food system program, I would like to come back to the initial title, which is an integrated approach pilot, to foster sustainability and resilience of agro-ecosystem for food security. So we are really working in sub-Saharan Africa. So we were really working on food security, meaning working on agriculture with smallholder farmers. And I guess the structure or the platform we created with the IFAD and with ICRAF was very very useful and fundamental. And it's always easy to say that it was the right thing of doing, but it's easy 5 or 7 years after the beginning, or when we started to conceive actually this program. But really, it has been an amazing journey with IFAD because they have a specific mandate on smallholder farmers, and ICRAF, very well known, the World Agroforestry Center, very well known because of research. But we are more interested in their capacity to actually transfer the knowledge from research to policies and institutions. So I guess the platform has been very useful. You know, we were not prepared to the COVID situation, but the platform actually and all the internet tools were very useful. And it was, for instance, possible to organize the last 2 annual workshops online and with several training and work sessions. So really the platform was serving as a tool and also as a compass. And it's always tricky to, you know, to design such a platform, because we need at the same time a certain level of accuracy to act as a compass, but we also need a kind of flexibility actually to adjust depending on the situation. The number 2 lesson is the importance of peer-to-peer exchange, and it's really a personal observation that peer-to-peer exchange was very important. You know, through the Resilient Food System program, we are working at a different level with smallholder farmers at local level, at national level with the institution and the ministries, and at sub-regional level or Africa level with different institutions. And at local level, really, the importance of peer-to-peer exchange was very fundamental, and it's a real question for us to think about the future of how we are going to support smallholder farmers and what is the future also of extension services. Several stakeholders are involved in supporting smallholder farmers, you know, research centers, NGOs, ministries, state agencies, and so on. But definitely we need to incorporate more subtle aspects, you know, related to cognitive aspects, sociological or cultural aspect. For the project teams, I guess John Key mentioned it, and I'm not going to explore it deeper, but the annual workshop and the preparation of the annual report was always a very important moment for all the, you know, communities of practice, as we call them, to develop a peer-to-peer exchange. And so last but not least, one message and one challenge, actually, it was how to manage the complexity of such a program, you know, with 12 countries. There were 7 GEF agencies involved in this IEP on food security. At the level of the regional hub, there were 5 GEF agencies and 4 non-GEF agencies. So really the question of transaction cost between all the partners and all their, you know, to think well about, you know, the added value in terms of expertise, in terms of co-financing, in terms of networking, should be really carefully reviewed. And I would say that IFAD was able to act as a locomotive, you know, showing the path. And actually one reason is because IFAD was involved in 7 country projects. So 5 projects were managed by other agencies, and we cannot underestimate the transaction cost among GEF agencies to work together. So this way of doing, you know, with IFAD managing more than half of the child project was a lesson taken from past programmatic approaches in GEF 4. I'm thinking about the Strategic Investment Program for Sustainable Management. And in GEF 5, the SAWAP, the Sahel and West Africa program to support the Great Green Wall that was led by the World Bank. So in very short, number 1, knowledge management has been the structuring element of the Resilient Food System program. Number 2, the importance of peer-to-peer exchange at different levels. And number 3, the importance and the way to manage the complexity, you know, and the number of partners, both GEF agencies and non-GEF agencies. There are, you know, challenges and lessons. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean-Marc. This is very nice summary, and I think these 3 points that you mentioned applies to probably all the knowledge platforms, and very useful. Adriana, over to you.
Thank you a lot. I'm Adriana Moreira. Thank you so much, Senior Biodiversity Specialist at the GEF Secretariat with the Biodiversity team, and also for Food Disclosure Coordinator for the Global Wildlife Program. I want to thank you all for this very exciting and very to the point. You know, I was really impressed with the strength of the lessons learned and the practice of these different platforms. And since we have very little time, I want to really make 2 points very quickly. one thing that from the GEF perspective, I think would be very important to see, and we are seeing this, the evolution of these knowledge platforms. And also someone in the chat said there's a convergence of the histories and the practices. And I think that's a very important point. So I want to highlight the importance for us of the integration of this knowledge, particularly not the peer-to-peer learning among the agencies, and I think, and among the other programs and non-GEF programs. I think both the GWP and the Resilient Food Systems get good, and the Sustainable Cities gave good examples of interactions with other platforms. The Great Green Wall, Terra Africa, we have the one with the Amazon Sustainable Landscapes Program. So I think that's what we should strive for. We're starting, these platforms have evolved in parallel, but now this big challenge of making them globally, regional, as Jean-Marc was saying, and locally relevant. And on the other aspect I want to tackle is the importance of knowledge management as a tool to promote inclusion and value local knowledge. In my experience, if we do that, the approach that we use can be a very powerful instrument for project and program ownership. I want to stress this: knowledge management is not just for the GEF. It's not just for the agencies or governments and other implementing agencies, but it's very important that we include the needs of the end users and practitioners of the local communities, and we value the knowledge of the women and the men that make our projects results and impact really transformational. And this integration and engagement, I'm talking about like bringing the top down from the agencies, the platforms, and a bottom-up approach, and bringing them together in the middle, because the integration of the platforms, across programs and projects, and the valorization of the local, the end users, the practitioners, can really help us tackle a very relevant challenge. That's the long-term sustainability. We're going to do without these instruments when we don't have any more funding from a particular project, So this is a very relevant point that I want to leave. And I think with this combined approach of integration and valorization and inclusion at the local level, and from my experience, peer-to-peer exchanges, south to south, and peer-to-peer knowledge at all levels is a very relevant and very practical approach. We can really promote long and lasting impacts on the ground and deliver transformational results from our projects and programs. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure to listen to the whole morning of these incredible, amazing experiences of knowledge management. And I think that's what the GEF is all about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adriana. Very, very useful comments. I really like the point that you made on inclusion and integration of indigenous knowledge, because that's really fundamental, because we can provide broader guidance, but what is important is that things should come up from the bottom with the local knowledge, because they understand the situations in many contexts much better than anyone else. So thanks a lot again. I'm conscious of time, but I think we can give 1 minute to each of the three speakers from the lead agencies to share any final thoughts based on what Adriana and Jean-Marc said. So I can start with Jonki. You have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. I think Jean-Marc summarized what I have to say, especially on the complexity how to deal with many agencies, and I think I have tried to highlight in terms of reporting and how we track knowledge for the reporting. All those elements need to be take seriously in the upcoming programming. Thank you very much. I want to stop here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Ruth, over to you. Sorry, I stopped you towards the end, but if there are any other messages that or any key points that you want to share, please go ahead. Ruth?
Thank you. I really liked Adriana's points. I think she really make very, very good points. I think Lisa also highlighted, as well as Jean-Marc, very interesting points. So I would say co-creation, because then it makes the end beneficiaries part of, it really empowers them, peer exchange to really foster South-South cooperation. Let the beneficiaries talk, because then they get engaged, they get interested, and you can actually come up, learn from them, and then put the language in a much more equitable way. I think that it's important. Language, we have to have things translated in the languages of the beneficiaries if we want to reach out for people that are especially at the local level. It's extremely important. And yeah, I think that these are points that I would emphasize. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Lisa?
Thank you, Alok. Agree fully with Adriana's point about convergence of platforms and how we get these platforms to collaborate for greater impact and support to the countries involved, and to help the platforms learn from each other. I can say that in the short presentations from Yonki and Ruth, GWP saw things that we're having problems with, which they are really nailing. So we're going to be reaching out to both of them to see how we can learn from their approaches. So this was really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Let me see if I can do the most difficult part of wrapping up such a rich discussion. But I think there were some key messages, highlights, which are surely very going to be very useful as we move forward in our GEF 8 programming, as well as in developing our strategy. On the operations side of these knowledge platforms, I think there is a clear point that coordination between different stakeholders, different partners is really fundamental, not just between the GEF partners, but also non-GEF partners who have the potential to contribute significantly to these platforms in scaling up the impact is really fundamental. We saw examples across all the three programs, how they're collaborating and trying to expand the partnership. And I think that's really fundamental. Ruth, thanks for highlighting the point on the timing. I think that's really a very important lesson. And as you said, that we have incorporated this point in GEF 8. So in GEF 8, the global platform will be developed first, and then it will be in a position to inform or guide development of country child projects. So yeah, and also the point on linking knowledge platform with monitoring and evaluation processes and all, I think this is really important. We all understand that, but I think it's important to articulate it in the strategy. So this is useful. In terms of the knowledge sharing and the platform's key elements, I think there has been rich discussion. You have all heard. I think there are a few keywords which I just wanted to say. Co-creation, which is, I think, very important. Adaptive knowledge platform. We need to adapt to changing situations, like how these knowledge sharing is done both in person and hybrid in context of COVID. I think that's important. Working at multiple levels, I think Jean-Marc very well highlighted, and that is fundamental. Knowledge has to be translated across different levels, so that's really important. And the point on inclusion, which I think, and local knowledge, which Adriana mentioned, I think this is really, really fundamental. So and one point that I think somebody mentioned, I don't recall, is the linking of these platforms together. Although they have different thematic focus, but I think there is a lot to learn from each other, from these platforms themselves. And we heard there are common challenges, common successes, and common issues. So I think that is also important, building on what is already there, like, the example of Great Green Wall Initiative, and which is, kind of complementing the food security IP. I'm also happy to let you know that, we are on the adaptation side, we are working with IFAD in developing a knowledge platform on adaptation for Great Green Wall countries. So that will be, another global platform that we are planning to come up with. So I'm sure Yasmin and the knowledge team has a lot to take away from this. And with this, maybe I can just pass it to Yasmin for final words. Thank you
so much, Alok. Really appreciate it. Yes, there is enormous amount of information to take away from this session. We are grateful that you were able to all join and hear it today, and our presenters. Thank you so much to our agencies for presenting their particular examples, and also to Alok, Jean-Marc, and Adriana for their comments. This has been super helpful, and in fact, we will repeat this with actually bringing in other platforms as well from other investments, and spending more time learning from these GEF investments. There's so much, and clearly, as Jean-Marc said, we started this journey many years ago, and as I was showing you the history of where we started thinking about knowledge management and then where we are now, it's been more than a decade, and of course integrating knowledge and learning into our programs started with the pilots, and the preparation for those pilots started before GEF 6 started. So imagine how many years of thinking and collaboration went into designing these, and then of course the implementation, thanks to our agencies and all of our stakeholders in the countries. Now, all of this is actually generating results that now we can talk about lessons. And now we are in a position to take these lessons and build on them and do even more and better in GEF 8 and beyond. So this is very exciting. Thank you all. Now, I am asking for your patience because we are running out a little bit late. Geeta Batra from Independent Evaluation Office is with us to continue with the flow of presentations here. Thank you for your patience, Geeta. She's going to talk to us about insights from the Independent Evaluation Office, focusing on lessons and focusing on terminal evaluations. We are actually very much following their recommendations in developing the strategy, and we look forward to their inputs also to guide us in this process. So Geeta, over to you. Ted will share your presentation right away. Yes, so go ahead.
Thanks so much. Hi, everybody. I'm Geeta. I'm the Chief Evaluator. And as the speakers from STAP clearly pointed out, KM is everybody's business. So we have actually got a full-fledged, very good knowledge management officer, Senya, who's with me today, along with other IEO staff. Next slide, please. So we recently, as part of OPS 7, actually did a review of knowledge management in the GEF. We saw significant progress was made during GEF 7, many thanks to Yasmin and her team. There's been a key role in sustainability and scaling up. And yes, there's been a lot of mention about doing more on inclusion, doing more at different levels, but we did observe some success stories in that, in our work on scaling up. And then you've just heard a whole session on knowledge platforms that have been effective in facilitating knowledge exchange. However, this was at the early stages. So in GEF 8, we're going to do more to evaluate these platforms, but we're very encouraged by what we've heard today. There are clearly opportunities to strengthen in terms of incentivizing learning. You've said a lot today, designing a good technical solution. It's everybody's job to do this. More guidance. I know there's been some on programs, perhaps a little more, and enhance the use of knowledge platforms. Next slide, please. So let me say that the sources, IEO would not be able to do a lot of its work if not for the knowledge generated across the GEF partnership. We rely very heavily on terminal evaluations, on midterm reviews, on project implementation reports, as well as our own on-the-ground assessments on validations and other evaluation tools. The MTRs, PIRs, etc., and the TEs are obviously available through the GEF portal. But in addition, the IEO led by Neeraj and Francisco, we've actually created a database on our website of all the terminal evaluations, as well as our own validation reports of these terminal evaluations, freely available to all for download. If you want to know how your region, your projects are performing, it's out there. The TEs are available on our website, as well as along with our evaluations. Next slide, please. Among other factors, a good terminal evaluation focuses on a good results framework, outcome indicators, impact indicators. But Neeraj, my colleague, who's attending this, has actually developed very good guidelines along with the rest of the partnership on what constitutes a good terminal evaluation. A key element of this is that it draws lessons and recommendations based on the project experience. So we rely heavily on the lessons learned section of the terminal evaluation. Next slide, please. So the KM generated, like I mentioned, we rely heavily on it, and it's used in all our evaluations. We've used it in our thematic evaluations, whether it's on climate change, in our focal areas, on biodiversity mainstreaming, our strategic country cluster evaluations, on LDC, SIDS, the annual performance reports, and we've done more deep dives into the lessons from terminal evaluations, particularly in 2014, as well as in 2020. In our programmatic evaluations, we've looked at the knowledge platforms, and we'll further deep dive into this. More importantly, we use a lot of these lessons in actually designing and developing frameworks for what constitutes transformational change. If you notice, after our work on transformational change in the GEF 7 programming directions, we must have seen the word and phrase transformational change used over 70 or 80 times. So it's very encouraging that we draw on the lessons and then we use it to inform further GEF programming directions. Similarly, the work on GEF's additionality. We have an additionality framework now in place, again, drawing on the lessons that emerge from these TEs. So I'm trying to re-emphasize that whatever you do and generate in terms of lessons is never gone to waste. It's used very heavily by us. Next slide, please. Another key thing is, in projects that actually have good KM, whether it's the focus, like Adriana was saying, on knowledge, on inclusion, etc., we've noted that good knowledge management in projects is actually associated with better outcomes. We've seen this in the KM platforms. We've seen this in the safeguards and policies in focal areas, whether it's IW Learn. The other focal areas are also catching up. We noticed this in an evaluation of artisanal gold mining, where lessons learned helped improve the design of the next phase of the gold program. We've seen this in our scaling up, where actually there have been levels of knowledge exchange in different projects. And we've seen this in our work on innovation. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, in a 2014 APR, we actually distilled general lessons on project design and project implementation that came from a database of these projects. Now, at a very broad level, one may think that these lessons are pretty generic, right? That good stakeholder engagement, you're planning for transformational change, etc. But when you see these lessons repeated over and over, it actually re-emphasizes the importance of these factors. And then as one distills further into a specific sector or a particular focal area, you can actually find the lessons that are more relevant to those. So as you're aggregating up, the lessons become more generic, but then you can get the deep dive lessons based on the sector or the theme or the country that you're working in. Next slide, please. And similarly, you get to hear about what are the design weaknesses, which is not necessarily a 180-degree difference from what worked well, because design weaknesses, you can actually see something like overambitious objectives sometimes, which is not always in good project design, right? So you get to know the vice versa of good design, lessons for good design in terms of the benefits as well as some of the weaknesses. Next slide, please. Sharing knowledge is everybody's business, as Mark said, and Graciela from STAP. And we think it's our business too. And so we actually distill the lessons and we share broadly. We've just published 2 books, one on the GEF, one on transformational change. It's both available for free download. We routinely present at a variety of conferences and presentations, sharing the lessons that we've learned, both to the evaluation teams as well as to project and project practitioners. And lastly, we do invest a lot in training. So just like, you know, the GEF Secretariat has developed the monitoring side of a training module on an online platform, we're actually in the process of developing a detailed online training for evaluation of environmental interventions that will be broadly available to everybody for free, right? And we're trying to get this actually certified by other evaluation teams as well as by other online training platforms. So this is actually a recognized training course that one could take. This will be available within the next quarter. Next slide, please. So I just thought, you know, if there's time to raise 3 questions for discussion. One is, since everybody, we rely, and you all, as well as the good practice briefs that are coming out of the Secretariat, is there a need to actually enhance the lessons learned section in the TE and MTRs? Would it benefit from more guidance as to what are the kinds of lessons that one could actually bring so that they're shared across the partnership? Would it be useful to construct a database of lessons learned? We in the IEO had taken it upon us to generate this database of 600 projects. Other evaluation units are doing this. Whose responsibility is it and where should it sit? We noted some issues with the portal. The portal has fulfilled its initial mandate. Whether it should be expanded to do more in terms of capturing knowledge is probably a question to explore. And finally, how do we effectively utilize the lessons across the partnership? So IEO uses it. How well is it used by the agencies in the next stage of project design? How well is it used by program teams is a question for discussion. With that, I'd like to just ask Senia, my colleague. Senia, would you like to add anything for a minute?
Thank you, Gita. That was very useful and informative presentation. Since we are running over time, I don't want to interrupt the discussion. So I would stop here and would like to hear the discussion. Thank you.
So thanks for having us here. And I hope we've instilled some sort of, questions for discussion.
Thank you, Gita. The questions you pose at the end, in addition to your presentation, are actually very much on point. And we would love to have a discussion on this, but I'm afraid we are out of time, so we won't be able to have an interactive session. I invite our participants to provide any comments or questions in chat that you can then entertain and we can entertain. However, I want to assure you that the questions you posed at the end of your presentation are the questions that we are going to be asking in the visioning exercise that's coming up in September. And the strategy will be addressing that. And we're hoping that you will be working with us on answering those questions, because I think they're very pertinent in terms of, whether or not we can do better in the lessons learned sections, internal evaluations and MTRs. And we already asked this question about, should there be a repository for lessons learned to our agencies? And there was an overwhelming response, a positive response from the agencies that there should be lessons learned, because agencies want to be able to access lessons from the other agencies' work in similar areas, similar countries, etc. And then it would be leading to cross-fertilization and improvement of quality of GEF investments overall. So there's definitely support for that. The question about where it should sit and who should be responsible for it, I think that's for the partnership to decide in a collaborative manner, so that we will have that discussion. So thank you so much for your participation today. We look forward to engaging with IEO more in depth in the future. So please, everybody, if you have any comments or questions particular to Gita's presentation, please include them in the chat. So now I would like us to move forward in the meeting, because we are running out of time, and thank you for your patience. And I would like to invite now our country support program colleagues to talk about knowledge exchange at the country level. In the presentations before, we talked about platforms, but there were plenty of comments about the importance of peer-to-peer learning at the country level, at the beneficiary level, at the local level. And there are multiple initiatives that the GEF Secretariat, together with the GEF agencies and other partners, have undertaken in order to achieve that. And our program coordinator at GEFSEC, Robert Schreiber, Ted, is going to walk us through one of the initiatives that has tried to do that, and something that we intend to continue in GEF 8. And then Christina Boyo, again, a member of our KM team and also the CSP program, will talk about our plans to launch a knowledge and collaboration platform for our focal points, connecting them so that they can collaborate and work together. William is not able to join us today, but he's been very much heavily involved in both of these initiatives. So without further ado, Ted, could you please take over and make your presentation on the GEF Knowledge Days? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Yasmin.
I'm not able to see your screen, but Ted, is it just taking time or?
No, can you see it?
No, I can't see it.
Can you see things okay?
No, Ted, it's dark. You want me to try and share?
Yeah, I'll try resharing it.
Ted, if you're having technical problems, maybe Christina can share her screen or your presentation, and then she could walk you through it.
You want me to try and do it? Can you see? I shared it, Yasmin. Can you see it now?
No, it just says GEFSEC Ted Schreiber has started screen sharing. And now it's Christina's screen sharing, but
Ted, I think it worked for me. Maybe you can stop trying to share and then.
Yeah, I'm not trying to share. I just got kicked out of Zoom, sorry.
Okay, so I shared it. Maybe it's an internet issue. And you can.
Yeah. Are you sharing it right now? Okay.
But we cannot see it. I don't think anybody can see it right now. I think maybe there's a problem with the presentation.
Okay, hold on then.
Christina, why don't I try again?
Okay, here it is. It's working now. Okay, go ahead.
So thank you very much. Sorry for the little delay here. We just want to talk about the GEF Knowledge Days and fairs that have been taking place since 2017 to 2020. And we want to share the lessons and expertise from the field and in the field. From 2017 to 2020, we've engaged in knowledge days and knowledge fairs. They're full-day regional knowledge and learning events targeting our country counterparts. They work with the ECWs, where participants receive training on GEF policies and processes, as well as the key principles for effective design and implementation of GEF projects and programs. They provide hands-on exposure to GEF finance projects, and they provide the opportunity for field visits to GEF projects to meet with the project managers and the beneficiaries, as well as other project partners, and to then firsthand observe and interact with key project lessons learned on site. In some cases, when we don't have the capability of a field visit, we bring the knowledge day to the workshop and essentially create a knowledge fair so that multiple participants can, again, engage in different projects and engage with different partners, beneficiaries, project coordinators, agencies, and all the other people that make a project happen. The GEF piloted the use of what we call learning stations at the very first Knowledge Day. And this is an idea that has been incredibly successful, and it allows, again, agency staff and beneficiaries to play a very active role in talking directly to the other countries about what is happening, how things work, and showcasing what's going on in the field or in a remote area. These have been replicated in our 13 different regions, which is basically our expanded constituencies. And we've basically reached out to more than 140 countries who have participated in all these workshops, with more than 3,600 participants attending these workshops over the course of the Knowledge Days. Next. Christina, can you, this is the video here. I don't know if you can play it or not.
No, I don't think I can. Oh, wait. Maybe I can.
Christina, we don't have sound on it.
Sorry?
We don't have sound on it.
Knowledge and learning needs of our stakeholders.
Yeah.
We designed a GEF.
Can you start from the beginning, Christina, please?
Finance projects. Knowledge is a primary asset of the GEF. Much of it is generated from the lessons learned and good practice in project design and implementation. To meet the knowledge and learning needs of our stakeholders, we designed a GEF Knowledge Day for hands-on learning from GEF finance projects. The event was piloted at the ECW, the Extended Constituency Workshop in Trinidad and Tobago in March 2016.
The Knowledge Day trains participants on the key project management principles, GEF policies, and GEF processes. It also allows participants to visit the GEF project, meet project managers and beneficiaries, and observe key lessons learned on site. Where a field visit is not possible, project managers and beneficiaries come to the participants instead. Such interactions attract participants' attention, improve learning, and facilitates further collaboration and knowledge exchange. The GEF Learning Day methodology is easily integrated into the ECWs, and it supports the GEF country relations strategy.
Through learning stations, project managers and beneficiaries display and discuss project lessons and good practice.
Christina, do you have the volume on?
Okay, well, perhaps we can move on.
Do you want me to stop it?
Christina, there's no volume, so I guess we can.
Yeah,
we can-
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much, Christina. Okay, so we'll just go to the next slide here. And briefly, the video that we were attempting to show and showed partially illustrates a number of the different knowledge days. And you can see in it the way that we have orchestrated everything and that they are on site, you're visiting projects, people are interacting with the beneficiaries, with the project partners. And we also have things like the knowledge passport, where we specifically tie the activities for the knowledge day to what had been previously presented in sort of the more classroom learning experience. And we've, to go to this point, we've found that this provides really, really good experience for the participants. And so this slide is feedback from Knowledge Day participants. And the first one, this is an effective way to share and learn. That's 4.32 out of 5. The next one, the site visit was well organized. The site visit allowed me to learn something new. The site visit motivated me to use new insight and tools. All of the feedback that we have been getting is overall very, very positive, and people really find these a beneficial activity, especially because they tie into the learning that we've presented at the meeting in general. Next slide. And so how do we go and take these knowledge days and fairs and really help them contribute to GEF 8? We really want to take this platform to help realize the goals in both the GEF Country Engagement Strategy, CES, and the GEF Knowledge Management and Learning Strategy. We want to establish strong partnership and learning opportunities, especially at the country level. And we want to link agencies, countries, donors, and beneficiaries so they can all experience this together and learn from each other. It's a great tool for strengthening regional cooperation, peer learning, and capacity building. Next slide. So going forward, we're looking at GEF 8 as an opportunity to implement knowledge days and knowledge fairs at GEF workshops, which we've done in the past, but also engage people in national dialogues, things like the GEF Assembly, various knowledge fairs that could be held at the COPs, and potentially try out virtual knowledge days where something is impossible, but there are great projects to showcase. Christina, next slide. So we want to know what you think. And in the next few weeks, we're going to be reaching out to you for ideas on how to make the GEF 8 Knowledge Days a reality. So please stay tuned, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted, and thank you, Christina. Apologies for the technical difficulty we just experienced, but you will have access to that video that we tried to show you, which is basically showcasing one of our knowledge days, so you can see and feel how it is actually taking place. And maybe some of you have already participated in some of these peer-to-peer on-the-ground activities. But as you can see, we have substantial experience in knowledge exchange or facilitating knowledge exchange at the country level. Of course, it's been done at a smaller scale than we would have liked to do. We would love to expand it in GEF 8. And as Ted said, we will look to hear opinions across the partnership as to how we can enhance this instrument for knowledge exchange going into the future. Now, I want to ask Christina to introduce to you another initiative that we are launching, which is a collaboration and knowledge and collaboration platform, KCP for short, for our focal points in all of our countries. And this is basically an initiative to facilitate exchange of knowledge among our focal points and various stakeholders that they work with at the country level, and also enabling them to work together and in an interactive way using technology. What I would like to say is that when we started to search for a proper tool that we could utilize and develop for this purpose, we canvassed the world, and basically we found as the most suitable option an example in Liberia. The environmental platform that the Liberian government had created with GEF funding through a GEF funded project on desertification. And this platform has inspired us to create this KCP platform for our focal points. It is now, it's a pilot with 7 countries participating. Christina will very quickly walk you through it. And we're hoping to launch it in the next couple of weeks for testing purposes. So go ahead, Christina, over to you.
Yes, just a second. I'm sharing. Can you see it, Yasmin?
Yes, I can. You should select the presentation mode for the slideshow.
Yep, trying to. Okay, got it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, so I'll be very quick, and Yasmin, anything I might forget in being, if I'm too quick, just please add anything. So I'm going to present another one of our knowledge exchange initiatives. We call it KCP, which stands for Knowledge and Collaboration Platform for GEF focal points. I put together a quick, sorry, I cannot see my, okay, a quick presentation yesterday that I hope you will enjoy. This is in a pilot format, so it's not final, it's a work in progress. We have received requests to develop something, a vehicle whereby focal points will be able to share information, knowledge, South-South exchange and learning. So as Yasmin said, she looked into different options and we came up with this platform. This is how it looks right now. We have 7 pilot countries, Cote d'Ivoire, Peru, Vietnam, Philippines, Turkey, and Maldives. We are developing country pages. One example here is for Turkey. This is how it looks. Now we sent a template to the pilot countries, but everything, all the information that you see is filled out by the countries. So they provide the information. This is an example of how the page looks. The site is, I snipped this in, so the site is not online. So, you know, these are just pictures of how the pages look. But you can see the focal point information, basic information about the country, environmental challenges, national actions, GEF portfolio lessons and good practice, and so on and so on. By the way, this platform is in English, but it also will have French and Spanish translation. The next button we have is GEF priorities. You see the topics there. Again, this is a pilot. We can always add and update. We have knowledge and learning. We have courses, online courses, our online courses there, and also any online course that the countries wish to share. Resources, which will have news, publications, events. It will have GEF events and any events that the countries, the focal points would like to share. And then we have FAQs, which is important. I will show you a picture of that. We uploaded a series of FAQs, like you can see, questions related to GEF. What are GEF focal points, for example? And then you click, it has information there. So this should be useful. Oopsies. Next one. Now this was all public access. Now, when you go into the forum, we have a focal point forum. If you see that button on the right, it requires registration and it's password protected. So whoever joins will request to join and will receive a login. So this is not public, this part of the KCP. This was created so members who are focal points of the GEF can share information, can upload anything they want, events, documents, courses. They can discuss with each other, country by country. We will create a constituency tab also, so the constituencies, members of the same constituency can discuss. So this is the forum, excuse me. And so you see me, I'm a member, obviously, okay, I'm a moderator. And these are the different tabs on the left. We have the discovery tab. You can see that there are questions being asked. I mean, this is just, we are, using it these are just us trying it out. So you can, you have questions, then there will be a site moderator and admin. So that person will be, making sure that there's quality control on the discussion, and also to make sure that whoever is a member should be a member of this platform. And members, so there are a bunch of members here. Now we go to topics. There are a series of topics. And whatever, let's say you're a member, you can pick which topics you would like to contribute to or share. And for example, GEF aid replenishment is one of the topics. So then you can go there and discuss, add anything, information. So this is it for the time being. Next steps are, well, we are finalizing the training manuals with the developers. Then we will share that with the pilot country focal points. Each country nominated KCP focal points who will be working with the focal points, who are also always very busy, so they need to, help from their staff to work on this. And that they will be trained how to use the KCP. We'll start the pilot phase, learn from our experience, adjust as needed. And once we are done with this process, we will be inviting all the other GEF recipient member countries to join and use the KCP. And hopefully this will be a wonderful vehicle for South-South exchange, knowledge sharing. If any questions, please reach out to our core team, Yasmin, myself, and Ted. And Yasmin, I was trying to be very quick, so if I forgot something, please do add.
Yes, thank you, Christina, for being so quick and precise. Yes, just to summarize, this is a work in progress. The site is under construction. That's why we didn't go to the web. We could have actually shown you it live, but we didn't want to put it out there yet because it's not 100% complete. We don't want to put out an incomplete site out there. So these are the snapshots, and 7 countries are working with us on this. Once they test it out in the next couple of months, they're going to be using it after going through the training. They're going to use it for a couple of months, set up meetings within KCP, start discussion groups, exchange documents. You can also exchange videos, photos, anything you want, and all of that is archived. Since it's password protected, you can put in the documents in your own country page within the forum. The forum is password protected, or you can share it publicly in the public site of the KCP. It's up to you as a country. You can utilize this as a tool for you. So what we're going to do is once the pilot countries test it out and we fix any problems we find or enhance the site, we are going to open it up to other countries. So if your country is interested, if you are a focal point And if you're interested in KCP, please let us know, because once we can show that the KCP is working and people are happy with it and people find it useful, we would expand it to other countries. And at that point, we would welcome you to work with us. So that concludes this session. And I am so thankful for all your patience. I still see a whole bunch of our participants hanging in there, even though we are delayed. This has been an amazing meeting today. Very glad that you joined. Just want to, in a sentence or two, tell you what we're going to do next. So all of this is going to be contributing to our strategy development process. So everything we heard today, we are going to take notice, and any comments you might send to us in the next coming months, we will consider it. We have a visioning workshop that's coming up in the fall. Until then, we are going to finish up our KM audit. There are a few studies still pending that it need to be finalized. And all of that will feed into the visioning workshop and focus group discussions. So we are going to bring together a number of different key stakeholders and go through a prioritization exercise for the strategy. The strategy is going to identify the priorities for GEF 8 in alignment with the GEF 8 programming directions and policy recommendations. And we are going to be drafting the strategy in consultation with all of you in the fall to be presented to the council in December. And after that, we are going to implement an action plan as long as our council approves what we are presenting to it. So that's the next steps. Thank you for being with us. And I'm going to request Françoise to close, if she can, this wonderful session. We were hoping that our CEO could be with us today, but he's busy making another presentation in London at the time. So he's sending you all his best wishes. And Françoise, on to you.
Thank you very much, Yasmin, and thank you to all of you for your participation and for staying with us, including beyond the time. We had indeed an outstanding session, and it really illustrates the strength of our knowledge potential as a partnership, because we saw the wealth of the partnership getting together around this complex topic with so many different perspectives and so many enlightening points, right? By now, I think the point should be clear to all that we are indeed at the GEF partnership sitting on a gold mine, and it is actually the type of gold mine that will never run out of knowledge riches. If anything, the more we mine it and the more we get out of it, and there is no limitation here. So I would submit that this knowledge gold is actually more valuable than even financial resources themselves. Because quite frankly, in the difficult environment we work in, dollars do not automatically convert into results, right? We know that. I mean, we can't just buy global environment benefit for money, right? Dollars convert into results when they are properly mixed with knowledge and learning, reaching the right audience at the right moment with the right content, right? And this is a live product. So the next question that the knowledge management and learning strategy has to answer is how to optimize the use of this incredible wealth of partnership knowledge. And the next steps, as some of you said, is not about putting in place a mega system. It's not about developing an endless list of products. It is about, as Mark very well said it earlier on, it's about having strong leadership to shift a culture here. It is about bringing together participants around their respective potential contribution into this process. I think it's actually very important that we focus on this as we move into the next step of the strategy, right? Because we will have to call the call here. There will be a need to define further what we do and what we don't do. What is cost efficient to do? What is a priority? How do we attend to those priorities? And how do we dimension and bring into some calibration, some adequate calibration for the partnership, the objectives that we hold and the activities that we propose, all of that within, resource limitations. So it is that exercise in dimensioning that we are going to have to do together as we move forward through the visioning exercise and other engagement, which we will structure as much more consultative than we could afford to have today. I mean, today was really hearing about many relevant perspectives to what we're discussing, more than having a discussion. The next step would be to have a discussion around the next steps, which are next step about calling the call on critical trade-offs, right? A need to make explicit choices on where the resources will go, a need to tighten up the theory of change behind what we are trying to do, and through that to organize a change in culture to take us further onto the path of injecting partnership knowledge together with the GEF financial resources into generating global environment benefits on a bigger scale. So I think today was really an incredible opportunity to come together on that. I want to thank very, very much on behalf of the whole partnership, and on behalf of Carlos Manuel, who very much wanted to be here, as Yasmin mentioned, but who is traveling and attending a session as we speak, right, in London, so that he couldn't be here. But I wanted to thank all of you for joining us. And that involves Kimis from McGill for the external perspective and the contribution through the knowledge audit, Graciela and Mark from STAP, Eva from Informea. It was extremely useful to hear that what's in place already on information relevant to the MEAs, Gita, of course, from the IEO, the various contributors from the agencies that are involved in the IP platforms. And this was extremely informative for all of us. So Jonki from IFAD and Ruth from UNDP, Lisa from the World Bank, our internal colleagues, Aloki, Jean-Marc, and Adriana, for bringing all of this together in this very interesting and coherent session. And of course, Ted and Christina, and even more so, Yasmin, who's been organizing and leading us for the past 5 years to make sure that these KM advisory group meetings are very much worth our time. So look, thank you very much. We're counting on you for the next steps on this. You have access to further information about some of the details that we couldn't get into today in the information paper, which is available. And we are very much hoping that you will join us in the visioning exercise and in the next step of calling the strategic calls on this debate. Thanks very much to all of you.
Thank you, Françoise. So this brings us to the end. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Oh, I just want to actually recognize one more colleague that belongs to our team, Ikuko Matsumoto. She has been influential in organizing the IP session. Thank you, Ikuko. And yes, so have a wonderful evening. Good night to those who are going off to bed, and have a great day for those who still have the rest of the day to enjoy. We hope to see you again soon. We will keep you posted, and we will send you all of the presentations and the recording for this session and a summary of the chat. So let us know what you think. We are always listening, and just contact us whenever you wish. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.